lots of screaming and shouting, but I think what actually happened was it was quite a long stream. I mean, it was nearly 9 hours. And I think there were some exciting moments like Jade Cargill, like Jordynne Grace being confirmed. Some really great moments where we had like Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair like face to face. I mean, that is just amazing. Such an exciting encounter, that one. And then, of course, you know, you've got like Cody and CM Punk. There was quite a few bits dotted throughout the evening. I feel like I'm left with the feeling, just by looking out there as to what you lot thought, that it was just maybe slightly underwhelming. The general consensus is that this is not a Rumble that lived up to the hype. This isn't a Rumble that quite delivered on what we were expecting. I don't think that's unfair to say, actually, because I think our expectations were actually very high. And so I don't think it's unfair to say that we maybe didn't quite get up to that level. But, you know, it was still a very enjoyable evening, and, you know, no complaints from me. I think that it is definitely one that has really shaped the road that we're on. I think it's really shaped the direction that we're heading in. And actually, we might as well just have a look. We don't normally do this, but we can do this for the Sunday stream. We'll have a look and see what you lot voted the Royal Rumble, which I have got that information here. So this is the Wrestling Daze Clips channel, the second channel. And again, this is where we do all our voting for Raw, for SmackDown, for NXT, for the premium live events. We're really trying to collect that data, and we are collecting that data. If you watch the streams, you will have seen the list that we've got where we put all the shows on. And so I'm not going to add this yet. I won't actually add this until tomorrow, Raw. We'll see what the final number is. So if you still want to vote, you still can. You can go to Wrestling Daze Clips, and this poll is still running on the community tab. And you can see we had nearly 500 votes, which I know is not maybe the kind of numbers we get during the live streams, but is still well ahead of what we see for our Raw polls and our SmackDown polls, you know, and our NXT polls. I mean, you can see the SmackDown one did 330. You can see that NXT did 302. You can see this Raw one did 353. This one did 371. This did 326. This one already at 468. So more engagement with this, nearly about 50% more engagement. And it's come out at 55% great. Only 11% thought that it was all-time. 23% thought it was good. 7% thought it was okay. And 4% actually thought it was bad. So I don't think this is a bad score by any means. I think that it's I think the expectations were that this was going to be an all-time Rumble, and maybe that's our fault, maybe that's my fault to kind of think that, you know, this is going to be an all-time because of who was involved with Cody and CM Punk and Gunther, and it just felt like all the pieces were there for an all-time, and I don't know that it reached that level. For 11% of people it did, but as we said, you know, I don't think this was bad personally. I had a great time. I mean, we did an 8-hour stream, and at no point was I bored. At no point was I zoning out or regretting streaming or anything remotely like that. I mean, I had a great time, so I think this is fair, to be honest. I think this is fair. But yeah, it is true that there's plenty of word out there that it was maybe a bit underwhelming. One of the reports that I saw actually was from The Observer, and I know many people are going to say, oh, The Observer are always down on WWE, and that's fair. But this one's not written by Dave Meltzer. This one's written by Brian Rose, and it was 8 hours ago. And if we go down here, it says that was the Royal Rumble. It was kind of a middle-of-the-road show where nothing was real bad, but there wasn't a ton that was real good either. WWE is off to Australia next month for Elimination Chamber before heading to Philadelphia for the biggest wrestling show of the year. And with that, the countdown to WrestleMania is now on. So, and they also said as well, which I'm not sure, I don't agree with this. They said it was a hideous finish on pay-per-view, the Logan versus Kevin Owens match. They said it was a hideous finish, which I disagree with, because I actually thought that it was quite creative. We knew that Logan was going to retain, so the question was, how is he going to retain? So he's going to have to cheat. There's going to have to be something that he does to retain that title, to retain that United States title. So how does he do it? What does he do? What they had him do, of course, is go to use the brass knucks. Kevin stops him, takes them, he uses them instead, right? Which I know some people have said, why would a babyface do that? But to be honest, if someone was to swing at me with brass knucks and I had the opportunity to grab them, I'm not going to just go like, no, that's not me. Do you know what I mean? I'm putting them on, bang. Like, if someone's coming at you with a weapon and you can get that weapon, would you use that weapon? Kevin Owens did. And, you know, Kevin Owens, as we know, doesn't mind kind of straying into that kind of grey area. He's been a heel, full-blown heel many times. So he has no problem going into that grey area. So I thought him using it was fine. I thought him using it made sense. Cheating the cheater is fine, in my opinion. And he was getting away with it. 1, 2. And you know what? I don't know about you, but when he's counting the 1, 2, there is just the briefest moment where I'm pretty sure my actual thought was, he's going to do this. He's going to get away with this. You know, in a split second, you think that, right? It's going to happen. He's going to get away with this. And then the ref spots it. I don't consider it a hideous finish. I thought it was quite creative. I can't give you another example of that happening. And also, there are so many ways we could have done it, which would have been Theory and Grayson interfere. Do you know what I mean? Or Logan gets the brass knucks and uses them again. Well, we saw that before. This, I thought, was different and quite creative. So, I don't know. I was a bit disappointed to see them say that. But, you know, everyone's got their own opinion. So, to many people, I'm sure it was seen as a hideous finish. But, yeah, it's, you know, there's lots for us to get our teeth into. We're going to talk about absolutely anything and everything. I suppose I need to just say some thank yous. Thank you for those that watched the stream. Really appreciate it. Obviously, there's so much competition. So many more people do live streams now than used to do them a few years ago. It's a very, very competitive field, if you will. And, you know, for people to, like, choose to spend some of their time with us is, you know, acknowledged. I acknowledge you. You are being acknowledged. You're my tribal chief. So a big thank you to that. Obviously, a big thank you to people that commented and liked and engaged that little bit more, right? So a big thank you to those people. And then, honestly, just a big thank you for the support with the unseen videos, because I think as that live stream market gets more competitive for the channel, this is why my drive to try and find other content for the channel has maybe intensified over that period. You know, I am aware that it's getting very competitive. I am aware that there are more and more people that do the live streams, and we will continue to do them. But I am aware that potentially less people are going to join us. In a way, I suppose what we're seeing with watch-alongs and live streams is very similar to what we're seeing with TV, network TV, because it is getting more crowded. And there is some great innovation as well. You know, people are doing some different things. You know, Wrestle Talk, for example, renting out the pub that they rent out now. I haven't ever watched one of theirs, but I've seen, obviously, the reaction clips that have done the rounds. And it's a very clever idea. It's a very clever idea. I totally may steal it one day. But I think that, yeah, there's a lot of competition. And these big shows are very important to the channel. They're really what keep the lights on. They're really what keep things going. So it is important, and it is appreciated, people that do stick with us and join us, even if it's just for a bit. And then, as well as that, you know, this is why the unseen videos, I think, are really important to me, because I'm looking to try and make sure that we are delivering content through that avenue as well, you know, not putting all of our eggs in one basket. That's a dangerous road to go down. So seeing, like, you know, the SmackDown Unseen video did, like, I think it was about 11,000 views, and the Rumble one did about 11,000 views as well. It says that I think we found something people are enjoying. I definitely think I could have cut it short, the Rumble one, because the Rumble one ends up going half an hour, and I think I talk a bit too much about things that were just on the show. like, you know, here's Tiffany Stratton. Here's, like, this moment was great when Jade and Bianca were face to face. I think I probably could have took a lot of that out and just focused on the more unseen aspects, which is what the video is all about. But the feedback's been brilliant, and people have, I don't change anything. I love it. So it's a bit tricky. We'll have a look. It was a tough one to do because, as you can imagine, with 60 entrants and 2 other matches and winners and merch and backstage news, I mean, you can just imagine the amount of tweets that I had to go through to try and find the good, juicy bits. There was a few bits. I would say there's a considerable amount, actually, but there was a good few bits in that video that I thought were very interesting. One of them being Liv Morgan's attire, which apparently was based on Christina Aguilera, and completely passed me by. Had no idea it was based on Christina Aguilera. But yeah, that was a tweet that I managed to find. And so that was, you know, amazing. So there's, I think, some really interesting stuff in there. I think what I would say is, if you haven't seen it and you don't want to sit through half an hour, I understand. I always put timestamps, so you can actually just go to the description, see if there's anything that catches your eye, and then just jump to that section. And I will continue to do that for all of them. I do it for Raw, SmackDown, and I do want to try and do NXT, but the thing is, there's not loads for NXT to do. So I think if ever I can do an NXT one, I will. If I don't do an NXT one, then you know the reason why. There wasn't much that showed itself. Right, wow, that's enough about the channel. You lot want to talk about WWE, you want to talk about Royal Rumble, you want to talk about what next. And I suppose the best way of doing that is to just kind of get into conversations. I don't claim to have sources, right? Let's make that crystal clear, and I know you lot know that. I do read a lot, and obviously I'm being tagged in a lot. So I'm seeing a lot of reports, the same reports that many of you are seeing. I suppose I've got a bit more of the luxury of just really having a bit more time than the average person to just, like, read and read and read and read. So a lot of the stuff we're going to discuss is going to be speculation. A lot of the things we're going to discuss is it feels like it's going this way, or this report said this, or that report said that. There may be some stuff that we can discuss that are outright spoilers. But to be honest, if there are any outright spoilers or anything like that, I think they would probably end up going out as a separate video anyway. So I suppose in a way, like, it's just worth just bearing in mind the conversations we're having is we are wrestling fans trying to put the pieces, the speculation, the reports, the rumors that are out there together to try and figure out what's actually going down and what direction we're actually heading in. So that's what these Sunday streams are about. I suppose in many ways that's what the hours and hours of live streams we do when we're not watching the shows are about, is kind of like trying to find that way forward, trying to bring the freshest information, trying to get some theories, chuck them around, questions, and chuck them around, and get our teeth into those things. So with that being said, let's try and get into the chat. I can see there's bits on screen, but I want to try and get my chat on this screen. I did put that Brock one up, as I said. We can touch on that if you want to, but there is a video out and there's not really much more to add. I think it's a very interesting video, though. Very interesting video. I wouldn't have made it otherwise. So the information in there, I think, is worth a watch. Right, okay, here we go. FaZe Coaster said, how long do you think it's going to be until Brock is back? Of course, if he's investigated, we know about Vince's crimes, we won't be seeing him back at all. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, it feels like this case is going to be very public. So it's a lawsuit. And obviously the information has come out, like the whole document has been, like, it's out there. And to be honest, it's very rare to see a whole filing. I don't know that I've actually seen that before. I don't know that we've seen a filing. But then I suppose, how many civil lawsuits are there that involve wrestlers? I don't know. There was a lot of information that got released. I mean, maybe too much. I don't know. It was obviously, we saw potential text messages. We heard about potential incidents. We heard we heard everything, didn't we? Everything was in there, all the allegations. So it was that was public. Then I think you could say, yeah, well, right to information means it's got to be out there. That's totally fine, right? Understand. But then, of course, her lawyer went onto that Law and Crime Network. Now, they didn't have to do that. They didn't have to do that. They didn't have to go onto that Law and Crime Network and do an interview, right? So it feels like the one side, her side, wants to make this quite public. It feels like they want to really involve and make sure. I think, it seems like her motivation, just judging by what was said in that interview, is that she wants to blow the doors off. She wants to let the sun shine in, is how she worded it. And she said she hopes that others aren't afraid to come forwards. And I think she wants to make this public because she wants to show that she is standing up. I'm gonna put these allegations out there. I'm gonna make this very public, and I hope that if there are any other people that have gone through similar, that they then get confidence to do the same. Now, the reason why we're saying this is because this isn't just playing out in the background. This is playing out in the public eye, and that means that this court case, I mean, I don't know how long this goes for. I don't know if this thing could be settled outside of court. I would imagine it could, but I don't know if that ship has sailed, because she could have had 3 million. The payment stopped. I don't know if just paying her the rest of that money now would make this go away, but this never goes away now. It's out there now. So I don't even know if it's in Vince's best interest now to actually go down that road. If Vince is innocent, and it's a big if, right? We keep having to say this, right? It's a big if, because I don't want people thinking that I'm saying that he is, right? My stance is the same all throughout. I'm very consistent. I stand in the middle. I don't know the truth, right? So if Vince is innocent, he's tried to pay her to move on with her life, right? He's tried that. And for whatever reason, the payments stopped. I don't know why. It is something that bothers me, because I don't know, if someone had accusations against me and I could pay money and make them go away, I would pay that money, right? Certainly if they were false accusations, right? I wouldn't want anything if I'm a billionaire and I can pay 15 million to make them go away, that's nothing to a billionaire. It's nothing. It's like 30 pence to you and me. 30 cents if you're in America, right? Go away, right? That's the kind of mentality. This is why the NDAs are not an admission of guilt. The NDAs don't say to me that he's guilty and he's trying to pay money to shut them up, right? What it says to me is that what they're alleging is very damaging, and if he can pay money to not have that out in the public eye, right? Because you've seen what this has done. I mean, you've seen how devastating this has been to so many people. So he had the choice to pay some money and not have any of this happen. So that's why, to me, the NDAs are not an admission of guilt. To many others, they are. To many others, they look at that and go, well, he's guilty. He must be guilty. He wouldn't have paid that money if he wasn't guilty. To me, I don't see it that way. But the point I'm making is that this is playing out in the public eye. It's a very public thing. They seem to want it to be public, right? She seems to want to have this out there. And so I don't know how long this case is going to go for. I don't know when the trial starts or how long it goes on for. But what I do know is that whilst this process is happening, And depending on what the outcome is, Brock is not going to be around. I mean, you cannot be around. Not whilst this case is happening. So it's unknown is the answer, but I don't want to just say, oh yeah, we don't know and move on. I want to give you a bit more detail as to why we don't know, right? And why we don't know is because I don't even know if a court date has been set yet. They're still building their evidence. Even when that court date is set, I don't know how long it runs for. We also don't know if Vince is not going to try and settle. We obviously don't know the outcome. I mean, look, if the outcome of that case is that Vince is found innocent and this didn't happen and Vince's side can prove, right, because he'll have the best lawyers in the world. If they can prove that what she's saying is fabricated, he's already come out and said it is. He's not saying this is true, I've been a bad boy, right? He's saying it's completely made up, it's exaggerated, it is... I don't want to twist his words, actually. I mean, I suppose if I'm going to say what he said, I should say what he said. There is his statement that's out there. And again, we're not siding with him. She has obviously come out with horrific stuff. Horrific stuff. And I'm the same as you. I mean, I can't imagine anyone feels any different on this. I think we all want the same thing, and that is justice to be served. I think we all want the same thing. So I think it's very easy to get upset about this. I think it's very easy to get, like, you know, emotionally dragged into this. For me, I want the same as everyone else. I want the guilty people to be convicted. I want the innocent to, you know, be able to carry on with their lives. We need to go through the process of establishing if Brock is innocent or guilty, and you know, we need to. That's going to be a long time. So I think you forget WrestleMania. You may even forget seeing Brock ever again. To be honest, depending on how this is going to play out. So Vince's statement was, I stand by my prior statements. This lawsuit is replete with lies. It's obscene, made-up instances that never occurred and is a vindictive distortion of the truth. I intend to vigorously defend myself against these baseless accusations. I look forward to clearing my name. So that's what he's saying. People look at that again and they're like, don't believe him. But I don't know why people don't believe him. I mean, I don't know if it's because there's been other accusations that have been brought against him. But, you know, I think if you're in a position of power like that, you do run the risk of having a lot of disgruntled employees. You do run the risk of people trying to find ways to get at your money. We do live in a world where people will sue people. We do live in a world where people will fall over on their own and then sue for, like, wet floors. We do live in a world where people slam on the brakes to have the car behind them go into them so that they can then claim on the insurance and get a big payout, right? You know these kind of lawyers that exist. You've seen the same TV shows that I've seen. Saul Goodman is a thing, right? Now, I am not saying that's what's happening here. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that's what's happened here at all. And I keep banging this same drum, right? But the point I'm making is that we just don't know. We just don't know what the truth is. We don't know who's guilty. We don't know who's innocent. We don't know who's lying. So we need to see this process play out. So Brock Lesnar, we are going to have to wait and see. Brinley, shout out to you. Brinley said, I'm gonna feel strange waking up on a lovely morning to a little bit of Elimination Chamber. I can't wait for it, though. How those overnight WWE watch views are going to be worth it. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, this is one that I know is bothering a lot of people, but I think it's one that we need to get our heads around. I think we need to understand that WWE is now looking to be a global brand. And to be perfectly honest with my American friends, it should have been a global brand for a long time. And it is a global brand. You know, WWE is... It started in America. It's based in America. It'll always have its roots in America. But it is an entertainment that is now loved by the world. You know, kids in India absolutely love it. People in Australia, obviously the UK fell in love with it decades ago. And, you know, all over the world, you know, there'll be people in Africa that love it. There'll be people in Asia that love it. There'll be people in Oceania that love it. I mean, it is absolutely everywhere. And I think that for the longest time, we've not capitalized on that. You know, we've said before, how have they not done a pay-per-view in India? How have they not gone to India and done a pay-per-view? I feel like I worry that it's money that has prevented it, because I could understand a pay-per-view in India not making loads of money, because I don't think you can charge high ticket prices. But I just think that's not the right attitude. I just think that's not the healthiest way to look at your fan base, you know? Because you would still make money. You would still go there and you would make money. You know, I've no doubt about that. And that fan base would then be served. And you would be, you know, cementing your place as, you know, the global brand that you are or should be. So I think it's great that TKO Endeavor have come in with this different mentality, which I think we've seen with UFC. UFC goes around the world a lot more than WWE. And I think that we're seeing now something happen similar with WWE. So I suppose the point I'm making is that with Australia, with Germany, with Paris, obviously Saudi Arabia's on the table, can always come back to the UK. Working relationship with Japan and this, you know, keep hearing rumors of NXT Japan and sending Charlie Dempsey over there. There's a lot of like different places WWE can go now. There's a lot of different places that they can put shows on. And even though they might not be making the same money as just running, you know, Saudi every week, I still think this is the right strategy for long-term growth. I still think that this has got to be beneficial in the long term to go around the world and share your product with everyone around the world. So I think that this is something that we may have to start getting used to. You know, we may have to start getting used to these times not always being at the optimum time. You know, it might be a case that they are sometimes going to be at 10 in the morning. They are going to be in the middle of the night. They are going to be at lunchtime, depending on where we are in the world. And that could be a process that we see unfold over, you know, the next 5 years or so, you know. And as I said, for me, I think that this is the right way forward. I really do. I think this is a strategy that could really cement them as, like, you know, the global player, which I think they've already done a very good job of. But I think this is definitely an area that they've always needed to improve. They've always needed to get out there that little bit more. Anna, shout out to you. Anna said millionaires can easily tie up lawsuits in litigation. That's true. For ages, hoping the other side runs out of money and then settle before a judgment is made. I just want to see the truth come out. I completely agree. And this is just to go back to the point we made about how Brock might not ever return. There's a couple of ways Brock might not ever return. One of those is if these allegations are found to be true, right? And I know people will say, well, how can they be found to be true? Well, the culture that's being painted by these allegations within WWE is that it seems like a lot of people knew that this sort of thing happened, right? It was kind of like the culture seems to be that things might not have got this far, but you know how people talk, and that there will be people that will have heard things, maybe even people that saw things or partook in things that are going to come out and comment. You know, if we start getting witnesses, if we start getting people that confirm that they also heard this, like, being spoken about at the time, not since, but at the time that they heard this, or they overheard conversations, or they had conversations maybe with John Laurinaitis. I don't know, right? The point is that it's going to be very interesting the next steps, because in order to prove whether this happened or not, you are going to need some evidence, right? The texts aren't really much to be truthful because there's no proof. I don't know if they can find a way of absolutely proving that they came from Vince's phone. The fact that it just says Vince at the top of the phone is clearly not good enough. So I don't know if there's a way of like tracing those texts back to like a specific, you know, like how each computer has got an IP. I don't know if there's a way of doing that so that you can trace that back, so you can say 100% without doubt these came from Vince's phone, right? I don't know if he's even contesting the texts or not, but again, judging by what he said, you know, he's talking about how this is just full of lies and it's, you know, baseless accusations and all this sort of stuff. So it would sort of imply that he doesn't think the texts are real, because there would need to be a lot of stuff explained if those texts are real, wouldn't there? I mean, I'm sure you've read the same text messages I've read. There would have to be, I mean, surely those texts he had, they can't be, right? If for his defense, right? Surely they can't be. I don't know how you'd be able to defend them if they were. And I think this is where a lot of people on social media are getting a bit carried away. They see those texts and they see Vince's name and that's it. To them, this came from Vince and that's it. 100%. It's Vince. Can't believe he sent this. But the counterpoint is we don't actually know that they were. So again, it's very difficult because I don't want to get a reputation of like, oh, he doesn't believe her and all this sort of stuff, because again, I have to keep banging this same drum. I'm not saying that I take a side. I don't take any side. I'm not taking his side, not taking her side. I'm just observing and watching and then having conversations about, right, where are we? Where are we going? How could this get resolved, or what might the end result be? And I'm just watching it play out. That's all I'm doing, right? So I think that another way that Brock wouldn't be able to come back is if this is all found to be guilty, right? And he did it, right? And he was involved, right? I mean, there's no way back then. Yeah, that's worse. Well, is it worse? I was going to say it's worse than Hogan, because Hogan said, like, obviously stuff that he has apologized for and said that's not who he is, right? And that it was an isolated incident. I don't know that defense would work for Brock. I don't know that Brock would be able to come out and say that for this incident. That, you know, it was just an isolated incident, blah, 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 blah. If he knew that she was being, like, sex trafficked, right, however you word it, and was being sexually, like, you know, manipulated, and that this was something she was not on board with and it was all against her will, you can't just go, oh, that's not me, it was a one-off incident, right? That defense ain't going to work, is it? That ain't going to work. That ain't going to wash with people. So if he is guilty of being a part of this and found to be guilty, he's done. He's done, right? There ain't no way you can use him again. If it's a case, though, that, as Anna just rightfully said, that Vince settles, like, and these, you know, billionaires can do that. They can, you know, just keep this case going and going and going and going and going. That's also a problem for Brock, because whilst this case is going, I don't see how he comes back. And the other problem is, if this is settled, money is paid again, another NDA, right, by Vince, another NDA. How do you explain that this time? I can understand the first time. The first time you pay money because you don't want this stuff to damage, like, you know, WWE. You don't want this to damage your reputation, WWE's reputation. Because if you are innocent and someone's claiming these things, and you can just pay a little bit of money to just get them to go away and move on with their lives and sign a document to say they're not going to come back and ask for any more, right? Then, you know, that's an option you might want to take, and that seemingly is the option that Vince took, okay? But it's all out now, right? The damage has been done now. So surely now Vince has nothing to lose. There's nothing more for him to lose. The stuff that was going to damage him has damaged him. So now what I'm looking for, right, as a neutral observer, is I'm looking for him to do exactly what he said. I'm looking for him to clear his name. I'm looking for him now to go, do you know what? I paid the money, or at least he seemed like he was going to pay the money so that we could all move on. That's not worked. It's all come out. Now I'm going to like show the world that you're lying. That's what I'm looking for from Vince, right? That's what I'm looking for. If he now just pays for a settlement, I think it's a really bad look. I think it's a really bad look. Because what's he trying to settle for now? What's he trying to achieve with the settlement? What would be the benefit of settling now? I don't know. I would need to hear the lawyer explain as to why this makes any sense. How does this make sense that he now settles? I think he's got to go to court and clear his name. And so does Brock. And unless they can achieve that, I think this is a black cloud that's just going to hang over. I mean, maybe Vince just doesn't want to be dragged through the courts and this just be non-stop. Perhaps he just wants it to stop. At his age, he just wants to enjoy the final years he's got left. And those final years, he doesn't want them to be in a courtroom. I don't know if that would be an explanation that would satisfy people. I don't think it would. I don't think that would satisfy people. It may make sense. It may make sense. If I was in my, God knows how old he is, 80, whatever, and I've got, 5-10 years left maybe on this planet, 20 years, I don't know, however long, right? But do I want to spend X amount of those going through the court system? I mean, I definitely don't, do I? I definitely don't. So I don't know. A settlement, I just think would be a really bad look now that this has all come out. I think it'd be a really bad look. So yeah, it's not looking good for Brock Lesnar. Is the bottom line. It's not looking good for Brock. It's very difficult to see how he gets back, because whilst this case is going, there's no way. And if, as Anna said, if Vince is going to keep spending money to keep this in the courts, when does it end? So when does he come back? And what would the end result even be? Are they even going to get found innocent? Court of public opinion says no. Court of public opinion says, hang them. So it's messy. It's bad. It's very sensitive. And we are trying our best to, remain sensitive, if that's the right way of wording it. I'm trying to pick my words wisely. But yeah, as I keep saying, my stance is the same. I stand in the middle. I'm observing. I'm watching. I'm horrified by what I've seen. I think if they're guilty, the book should be thrown at them. Right? Definitely. If they're guilty, my heart breaks for her. If the truth is that she was pressured into this and felt pressured into this and felt like she was having to engage in these things against her will, just imagine the mental torture that would be for her, and just imagine the stuff that she has gone through. I mean, it's awful. You can understand why people are so sympathetic towards her and their hearts just break for her. You totally understand it. I'm just trying to be maybe a little bit more analytical than that. Trying to not be as emotionally involved as maybe some people on X. I'm just trying to look at the facts a bit more and trying to see what the next steps are going to be. And I think this is actually a very interesting case, is the truth. I think it's very interesting. Very interesting. And I think that is a viewpoint shared by a lot of people. This story went absolutely everywhere. And a lot of people were interested in it because it's just one of the biggest wrestling scandals ever, to be honest, isn't it? I mean, I can't think of anything really that is on this level. I mean, obviously, you've got the things like the Chris Benoit situation, right? The Chris Benoit incident. That would be one that would come to mind. But, Vince in his position, with the detail that's been provided, I mean, it's just so graphic. It's mind blowing. It's mind blowing. It's one of the biggest, most horrific things I can ever remember in the history of wrestling, and I think we're still trying to process it. This is why, and actually it leads me quite nicely. This is why I don't blame Triple H for not answering the questions at the press conference. A lot of people, I think, want answers. And I don't think Triple H is the person to give you those answers. The person that you need answers from is Vince. You need them from Vince, and you need them from this woman and John Laurinaitis, right? And that will hopefully come with a court case. Those are the answers that we need. And then, we can see what's said, and, we can start to figure this thing out. But Triple H is not going to be able to give you answers. Triple H is not going to be able to provide anything. So I don't blame the questions being asked, because I think that if you're going to do a press conference, then the press should be allowed to ask whatever they want to ask, right? As long as it's about WWE. I think the press should be able to ask those questions. And so I know it was a Royal Rumble press conference. I've had people saying, no, they shouldn't. It was Royal Rumble. They should have just asked about the Royal Rumble. I suppose my counter to that is, well, okay, when is the Vince press conference? Because they want to ask about Vince. So when do they get the opportunity to do that? When do they get the opportunity to sit down and ask questions about the Vince thing? Because if Triple H said, okay, come back tomorrow, we'll do the Vince allegation press conference, then I would agree. And I would say, you're right. They should only ask about the Royal Rumble at the Royal Rumble press conference, because you ask about the Vince stuff at the Vince press conference, but there is no Vince press conference. There never will be a Vince press conference, right, that Triple H is going to host. So with that being said, if the press have got questions, that's their only opportunity to ask those questions. So I don't blame Nick Houseman in asking the question. I actually think those questions that get asked are too soft. I don't know about you, I have no interest in seeing someone ask Bayley if she's pleased she won the Royal Rumble. I've got no interest in someone asking Bianca Belair if she's disappointed that she didn't win the Royal Rumble. I mean, I feel like a 5-year-old can answer these on their behalf, right? I don't know about you, but when I tune in to a press conference, I want to get some information. I want to get some stuff. I want to get something which was worth watching. I want to get some more context. I want to get some more information that wasn't out there, basically. Otherwise, what's the point in doing the press conference? So I thought him asking Triple H that question was fair, fine, right? I didn't have a problem with it, because it's up to Triple H how he responds. He doesn't, and as he didn't, he doesn't have to answer. And Triple H turned around and he said, look, we've just had a banging event, and, we've done 48,000. The show's been well received. It's the most money we've ever made outside of WrestleMania. I'm going to give you the answer I think you would expect, and I'm going to focus on the positives. I'm not going to focus on the negatives, right? And I think he could have left it there, right? The problem is anything he says is going to be scrutinized. And actually anything he says could even end up as part of a legal case. So, we're talking, he was in a minefield, right? It's all right for me to sit here and talk and try and pick my words and, try and make sure I'm being as sensitive as possible with this subject, right? It's fine for me to sit here and do that. I don't have the world's press watching every word I say, because I'm not connected to this incident. I don't know Vince. I don't, clearly I was not part of these allegations, right? But Triple H is connected to Vince. It's his son-in-law. Triple H has also been with Vince since he joined in 95, countless meetings, countless flights, private jets. God knows how many hours, thousands of hours of conversation, right? People are looking at Triple H and asking, I wonder what he knew. He must have heard rumors, Again, speculation. I don't think it's fair to say that, because it's speculation, right? So to me, I think that I can't blame him for not answering. Because look at the one thing he did say that then everyone jumped on. He said, I haven't read the lawsuit, right? But I'm going to say what Cody said. We're a family of staff and a family of blah, 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 right? As soon as he said, I haven't read the lawsuit, I haven't read it, I think is his exact words, everywhere. Everyone jumped on that. Everyone jumped on that. And it's just like, oh, man, just, you know, that might be true. That might not be true. I mean, to be honest, with us building to the Royal Rumble and the amount of stuff that's on his plate, I honestly don't know if that's true or not, because on the one hand, you would go, this is so important, you would definitely read it. But then on the other hand, it's not his focus right now, you know? It's not his focus right now. He's not going to be defending Vince in the courtroom. He's, you know, this is like, yeah, it's his father-in-law, but it is also someone else's problem, right? It's not Triple H's problem per se, because there is Nick Khan ahead of him, above him, right? It's Nick Khan should have read it, because Nick Khan is someone that needs to make sure that it's not still happening within the company, right? And above Nick Khan is TKO. So they should have read it, because they're the ones that are trying to work out, like, you know, the strategic way forwards, and they need to make sure that it's not still within the company. Triple H's role as head of creative, the guy that decides what we see on TV, it's not really within his remit to have to worry about such a thing. So, and plus, to be perfectly honest, I could understand him as the son-in-law and as someone that's known Vince for how long, to not really have an appetite to sit down and want to read it either, right? I'm sure he will. But because this dropped, 48 hours or so before the Rumble, and Triple H said, I promise you, we found out about this when you did, right? If that's true, then he's had a busy 48 hours. I can understand him not having to drop everything to read it. I can understand him not having an appetite to read it. And I think it's one of those that I'm sure he will read. And who knows, he may have even picked it up today now that the Rumble is out of the way. Or maybe he's working on Raw plans or whatever. But I can sort of understand it. I can sort of understand it. And I thought, like, Meltzer was really hard. I included it in the Unseen video. Meltzer was like, so your father-in-law has just been blah, 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 accused, and you've not done this, you've not done that. It's a really bad look. And maybe it is a bad look, but I don't know. I mean, I looked at it and I thought, what do you want him to say? What do you want him to say? Do you want him to go into details? Because he's going to land himself in all kinds of trouble, right? All kinds of trouble. He's going to get involved. And the last thing he wants to do is get involved. The last thing anyone should want to do is get involved in this situation. So I think for him to take the politician road and go, you know, I'm going to focus on the positives. I've had a few people saying it's fine that he didn't talk about it. He should have just worded it a different way. That's fine. It's fine. I mean, that's fine. It's a fair point. If you think it should have been worded differently, that's fine. But at the end of the day, the majority of criticism I've seen is that he avoided the subject and didn't answer it. And so my counterpoint would be, how is he meant to do that? How is he meant to do that? Because he gets himself involved in this situation. It's going to have legal repercussions. You know, he may get dragged into the court case if he says something which the defense or someone feels they can use. So I think he did what he had to do, to be honest. So yeah, Anna, thank you for the support, and great point. I think it's an excellent point. I think the whole thing about these millionaires can use their money to kind of keep these cases going is very, 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 very true. I just don't know if that's actually in Vince's best interest, if he is innocent, and if he actually really does intend to clear his name, as he has said. Then I don't know that just kind of tying this all up in the courts, I just don't know that that would be the right way forward for him in this situation. But this is why this is such an interesting thing for us to watch unfold. So, right. Christopher said, Daze, Punk or Seth? Who comes out first on Raw? Punk or Seth? Well, why not Cody? Why would Cody not come out first? Ladies and gentlemen, here is the winner of the 2024 Royal Rumble. I think my money would have been on Cody coming out first. The reason why I say that is because he's won the Rumble. The other thing is, we're not in much doubt as to what Cody wants to do, right? He looked up at Roman, and there is that clip doing the rounds. Don't know if you've seen it. Someone shouted at Roman. I've been tagged in it quite a few times, and again, thank you. Quote tweeting me, if you do it, I love you, right? Because you are helping me make those unseen videos better. I think actually, since we've started bringing this stuff onto the channel a bit more, I feel like the streams have got a bit more engaging as well, you know? So I feel like this is definitely the right way forwards. Let's make this a bit bigger, shall we? Zoom in. So here, this is one that James tagged me in, but as I said, I got tagged in by quite a few people, actually. This is Roman's reaction. Roman there, look, reacting to Cody winning the Royal Rumble. I think someone had shouted, it's over now, or something like this. That's what Roman heard. Someone shouting, it's over, Roman. And you can see Roman definitely feeling the pressure. I mean, he would have thought to himself in kayfabe. Obviously, we're going back to the world of kayfabe now. We're leaving the Vince thing. He would have thought to himself, like, I hope CM Punk wins, because I'm pretty confident CM Punk would pick Seth, you know? So I wouldn't have to worry about this. But as soon as Cody won, Cody made it very, very clear, coming for you. I'm finishing the story this time. And I can't see them not doing it. To be honest, I can't see them not having him finish the story. I think he absolutely will finish the story. If you've been watching the channel, this is the match that I said I wanted them to do. I wasn't right in saying they would do it. I thought they would do Rock Roman. So I wasn't right in that. I can't take the dub in that. But I can take a dub in my heart, because this is the match I wanted. The Rock Roman match, I think, is bigger. It's going to be a bigger money maker for them. But for me, Cody and finishing the story, this is something we've been talking about for years. And I know a lot of people have been talking about Rock Roman for years, but we haven't been telling a story for years. All we've been doing is going, I hope we get Rock Roman. Do you think we'll get Rock Roman? Imagine if we get Rock Roman and it's for the tribal chief thing. Like, blah, 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 right? But the Cody story, we've seen him come back, battle Seth, get injured, win a Rumble, go to WrestleMania, try to finish the story, get cheated, get into a feud with Brock, get into a feud with the Judgment Day, bring Jey Uso over, get into a feud with Shinsuke Nakamura, go into the Royal Rumble again, win the Royal Rumble again, all whilst having people saying, CM Punk's back now, he's gonna eclipse Cody, The Rock saying should he be the head of the table, that's going to eclipse Cody. You know, Cody has, you know, had a lot to deal with, in all fairness. This is a much richer story. There's a lot more that's gone on here than just the Rock Roman one. The Rock Roman one is an attraction. The Rock Roman one is an amazing match that can be built amazing. But we would just have to start that build, you know, and we kind of did with The Rock coming out saying, should I be the head of the table, right? So we sort of started it, but we've done a hell of a lot more with Cody, a hell of a lot more. To me, this is the match that will hit deeper. This is the match that will be more emotional. This is the match that's going to... I think actually be a real significant moment, in the sense of I think Cody is going to be a massive star for WWE for years to come. I mean, if you heard how Triple H spoke about Cody after, he said, you don't know the commitment of this guy. We have to literally drag him from the fans to get him to come to the press conference. Like, we look around, where's Cody? He'll be with the fans, and we have to literally drag him to get him to do like these media commitments. And he says, like, you just don't know the commitment. This is 100% the right guy for the future of WWE, right? I mean, as a statement, he could not have put Cody over anymore, right? There is nothing more that Triple H could have said. Unless he came out and went, right, Cody's going to win the belt at WrestleMania, and then we're going to make him the face for the next 5 years, right? That's the plan, right? Jot that down. Jot that if you got that down, right? I know some of you can't write because you certainly can't ask questions, but did you write that down? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah, he is the man. He is the guy, right? We're strapping the wagon to this guy. Yeah, jot that down as well. Thanks. So unless he came out and said that, right? What he said was, this is the man, this is the guy, and he is right to be that guy. So he put Cody over massive, right? So I think not only are we going to see the end of Roman's title reign, but I think we're talking about someone that's going to be at the top of the card in main events, multiple WrestleMania main events. You know, I think we're going to see someone that's a multiple-time champion. Obviously, it's going to depend as well about how this title reign gets received. You know, if it bombs, then maybe it's not going to work out. But certainly, judging by the comments that were made by Triple H at the press conference, it was pretty loud and clear to me that the intention right now is we're going to strap the wagon to him. We're going to put the rockets on him. He is our next Roman. I hope they've got a damn good story to support him, though, because there's no point putting the belt on him and then going, oh, God, that was good. What a moment WrestleMania was. Wow. What do we do now? Like, there's no point doing that. You better have some real juicy stories up your sleeve, man. You better have some real good feuds planned, right? And hopefully something a bit different as well, because I don't know about you, but just in the ring, promo, brawl, contract signing, match, maybe leads to a rematch, end of the feud, repeat again. I mean, we've seen it time after time after time after time after time. Like, I hope there's some different stuff in there. Bloodline was different because it was a faction and it was a family faction, and we got to really explore the relationships. You know, we've had factions before, but we've never really dug into the relationships between the different members. So, like, Jay's relationship with Sammy was different to Jimmy's relationship with Sammy. Solo's relationship to Roman was different than the Usos' relationship to Roman. Roman's relationship with Sammy was different than his relationship with Solo. And we spent time exploring all of these different relationships. We spent time looking at them all and analyzing them all. And it meant that we got to the point where someone could just look at someone and we knew what it meant, because we knew what the relationship was. And we knew that dirty look meant this, or that kind of, you know, shocked expression meant that. And it was so rich and it was so satisfying. We got to the point where body language was just as important as actually what they were saying. It was so well told. You know, everyone was like, this is cinema. It's cinema, you know? I mean, God, was it better summed up than the honorary Oos moment, where, you know, you've got all kinds of emotions, where Sammy has the shirt ripped off by Jay because he hates him, wants him gone. Roman, it feels like he's turning on Sammy, asks him why he's wearing that old Bloodline shirt, and then throws him a brand new honorary Oos shirt, and his face just lights up. And you've got Jay going, oh, Jesus, I thought he was gone. I mean, it was incredible. So for me, that was very deep. It was very rich. It was very satisfying. For me, I hope we do something similar with Cody. I hope that we can find a way of not giving him a family or a group. I mean, you could go down that road, but we sort of just did that with the Bloodline. So you can do it. I don't know if I'd do it, but I think I'd rather do just something rather than the Seth path. You know, what we've seen from Seth is I'm going to do this feud with Shinsuke, which was great. I'm going to do this feud now with Drew. Okay. I'm going to have this match with Jinder. Do you know what I mean? They're just these copy and paste feuds, but just against different people. I mean, granted, they're good because Shinsuke was able to present himself in a way we hadn't seen before. Drew was doing some interesting promo work, so that was fine. Jinder, because of Tony Khan, that was, you know. So, I mean, I'm not, like, down on it, but the point I'm making is they weren't, you know, Seth wasn't making those feuds deep and rich and satisfying. It was his opponents that were making it deep and rich and satisfying. It was Shinsuke, it was Drew, it was Jinder, and what it meant to them to try and win that title, that's what made it deep and rich and satisfying. I can't really say that Seth brought anything to that side of the equation, so I really hope that we don't do that with Cody. I don't want Cody to just be a champion that coasts, because I think that would be my criticism of Seth, is that he just coasts, comes out, does his song, wears his clothes, starts a new feuds, and then allows them to bring, like, you know, the fire, allows them to kind of really bring the deep, satisfying stuff that we look for. Obviously, he plays a part, but you get my point. You know, I think of the Shinsuke feud, I think of how we presented him, which was different. I think of the Drew feud, and I think of how he's a heel, but is he a heel? Because of the fact that he's kind of telling the truth, and it does make sense, but it's done in a really good way. And, like, I think of that. When I think of the Jinder one, I think of people not being into it, and then Tony Khan, like, speaking out against it, and then everyone being on board, right? I don't ever think of Seth. And I do worry that if Cody wins the title at Mania, which I'm fairly confident he will, I do worry that we're then going to do the same thing with him. And we need better than that. For the face of the company, we need better than that. So, yeah, really, really interesting. Really, really interesting. So, to go back to the original question, I think Cody comes out first, opens the show, celebrates winning the Rumble. We know what he's going to do, so it's not a surprise. He can get his promo done. I actually think the more interesting thing is CM Punk and Seth, because I want to know what Seth's, you know, what are we doing with Seth's challenger? Seth right now doesn't know who's going to face him. What's CM Punk's plan of attack? What's he going to do? I actually think their promos are more interesting than Cody's promo. Because Cody's promo is, Roman, I'm coming. Roman, your days are numbered, right? Somewhat to that effect. You know, the story is getting finished. I feel like you can and I can tell you Cody's promo, right? We could cobble something together which is going to be there or thereabouts, right? But what's CM Punk going to say? That's interesting. I actually don't know. What's CM Punk going to say? What is Seth going to say? Maybe WWE actually take that away by announcing that one of the chambers is going to establish Seth's next challenge. If WWE come out and announce that first, maybe tomorrow during the day, you know, breaking news, Adam Pearce, Nick Aldis have discussed, you know, the next steps, and it has been decided that the Elimination Chamber match at the Elimination Chamber Premium Live event live from Australia is going to establish the challenger for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania. If that news was to drop tomorrow, which it very well could, then I think CM Punk and Seth's promos become a bit more predictable, right? Because all of a sudden CM Punk's going to want in that match, and Seth is going to be very interested about who wins that match. So that will be their promos. As of right now, I am not so certain what they would come out and say, either of them. So I think that those two, I would save them for later in the show. I think they're the two promos that are the most interesting. I would start with Cody, and I would save CM Punk to get you from hour 1 to hour 2. And maybe or I'd have Seth get you from hour 1 to hour 2, and I'd have CM Punk get you from hour 2 to hour 3, because we know that those periods, you know, that's the time where people change the channel, because new shows start on the hour. So that period of like 5 to going into 5 past, pro wrestling loves to put something pretty juicy in those time slots so that you don't change the channel. So start with someone like Cody. Then from hour 1 to hour 2, Seth. And then from hour 2 to hour 3, CM Punk. But it's going to really depend as to what gets spoken about in the daytime, you know. Oh, right. Gregor said, thoughts on CM Punk's performance. In hindsight, it probably wasn't the right decision for him to not win as he looked off it. It probably was the right decision for him to not win. I thought he looked a little off as well, actually. I didn't think that last sequence was the most engrossing. I don't know why, to be perfectly truthful. I think part of it is because I don't really care for Cody versus CM Punk. I like them both. We live in a world where we don't really need them to get in each other's way, because there's 2 brands and there's 2 world titles, so they don't really need to be getting in each other's way. Obviously, for the Rumble, they did. But, and I suppose Triple H's logic was, well, if I was to have Drew in there with Cody, people will think that Drew's not going to win against Cody, and so everyone will go, Cody's winning. But if I go with CM Punk and Cody, then I've got doubt. I've got, I don't know about you, but I really thought Punk was winning it. I really did. I was confident up until the point he got eliminated. From the very beginning, from the moment he came back to WWE, to the moment his feet touched the floor, I thought CM Punk was winning the Rumble. And I was surprised. I've seen a lot of people going, oh, it's predictable. But it wasn't to me, because the person I predicted didn't win. And actually, whenever we did a poll, and we ran it a couple of times, CM Punk was always far and ahead in the poll. So I have to disagree, it was predictable. Granted, one of the favorites won, but I don't think you can say something is predictable if you go, well, it's either going to be Gunther, Cody, or CM Punk. It's like, well, yeah, pick a lane. You know what I mean? Like, you can't call out 3 names. I mean, I could call out 30 names, and then if one of them wins, what do I say? It's predictable. For me, predictable would be that you predicted the winner. You knew Cody was going to win, and I know some of you out there did. And so I think you're entitled to say it was predictable. That's fine. But I think for the vast majority of people, it wasn't. So I thought Punk would win. I don't mind him not winning, because I think this actually serves a bit of a purpose, and a good purpose. I think that obstacles are important. You don't really want CM Punk to come back and just have everything handed to him, right? Doesn't really serve him any favors. So he's come back and he's now faced some adversity. He's come back and faced adversity. He is now going to cut a very interesting promo because he fell short. And so we're going to have to hear how he responds. Is he going to be like, we stumbled, but we get back up type promo? Or is there going to be a bit of self-doubt that sneaks in? Or it'll be very interesting to see how he pitches it. So, yeah, I thought that he didn't look great. I wasn't a massive fan of the final sequence because I don't really care for Cody and CM Punk. I like them both. They're 2 big names, but because I like them both, they just kind of cancel each other out, you know? It's kind of a bit like I'm watching it and it's like, well, either guy can win and I'll be all right with it. Either guy can get the victory and it's fine. And so I don't really have that sense of, oh, God, this is dramatic. Oh, God, I feel like sick. I really hope he does it because I ain't really rooting for anyone. Like, if Cody was to win, great. If CM Punk had won, great. I would much rather that we had Gunther and Cody at the end. Much rather we'd have done that. I think I could be wrong, but I think it would have been better if we had had Cody and Gunther at the very end. I feel like, though, that is what we did last year, and I am guessing it's probably why we didn't repeat it. But I think it still would have worked, because it would have been like, does this go the same way, or does Gunther was a firm favourite as well. So I don't know that people would have looked at him and gone, nah, there's no chance. Or maybe you go Drew and you do Cody Drew. Don't know. But yeah, I got to admit, like, the end of the Rumble, I mean, it was fine. It was fine, it was not a chore to watch, but I think we could have done something different in retrospect. But yeah, Punk just falls short. So he faces adversity. That's not a bad thing. He also now has got a bit more of a complicated path to get to Seth. That's not a bad thing. I think he gets there, but that's not a bad thing. But really, for Cody, he now wins 2 Rumbles in a row, and it just cements what Triple H has said about this is the guy, right? There's only 4 people that have won 2 Rumbles in a row, and so he's now one of those names. He's going to main event WrestleMania again. So, that's a big nod of confidence. They could have done Rock Roman, but they're doing seemingly Roman versus Cody. And that's a big nod of confidence. That's a big vote of confidence. And seemingly he is the one that's going to end Roman's title reign. He's going to finish his story. I don't know how people would react if he went to WrestleMania and lost again. And certainly with it being WrestleMania 40... that does not feel like the right play. We've spoke before about WrestleMania 10, Bret Hart, WrestleMania 20, Benoit, WrestleMania 30, Daniel Bryan. WrestleMania 40, it's a fresh start. That was something else Triple H spoke about. Triple H was like, if I've got the same feeling I felt when I was on the verge of the Attitude Era. That's what he said at the press conference. He said, I've got this same feeling. It just feels like we're on the verge of something really special. And I think that's really exciting, because I would say the Bloodline was really exciting. I would say the Bloodline story, certainly when Sammy was involved, that to me was a real pinnacle. Years and years and years. I mean, I would put that up there with, I suppose I'd have to go back to Daniel Bryan. I'd have to go back to something like that. Maybe a Kofi Mania, but that wasn't around very long. Kofi Mania was actually relatively short. So probably the Daniel Bryan build, getting him to WrestleMania 30. That's probably the only thing I could compare. The Bloodline story, which was running for so long and was so satisfying, I could probably only compare it to that. If he's saying he feels like we're on the verge of something really special, I hope he's got some storylines like that up his sleeve. That, to me, is the gold. That's the gold. That's the stuff that we're actually looking for. So on our weekly wrestling shows, we obviously have to watch a lot of wrestling. That doesn't mean a great deal. But hopefully still entertains. But what we're looking for are those storylines that really satisfy, and we spoke what that means about the Bloodline, the relationships and everything. And Daniel Bryan was a prime example of that. It's another example of that. And I think that hopefully he's got some stuff planned, and he's got some stuff up his sleeve that we can move on to. But yeah, Triple H seems very, very excited about the future. So Cody seems like he's the one. This was a big vote of confidence. He wins the Rumble. Main event of WrestleMania is now set, right? Unless they add The Rock and make it a triple threat, which there has been word on the street about that, but I've only seen one report regarding that. And I just don't know that I can put much stock in it, to be honest. I've seen a lot more news about the fact that WWE want to do Rock Roman in Saudi Arabia. I've seen a lot more talk about that. So my feeling is Cody, Roman, WrestleMania, Roman, Rock, Saudi Arabia. Because the thinking is the Saudis have got money, and we could get more money from them, right? We can give you the show, right, that you've paid for, right? Because you have paid for shows. But if you want this, you've just got to give us that little more, because we have to pay more to The Rock to get him. But if you can commit to that, then we can give you one of the most anticipated wrestling encounters of all time. We can give you The Rock versus Roman Reigns. And so I know that WrestleMania is maybe the right stage, but actually where they could make the most money is Saudi Arabia. And this is why they've been, talking to The Rock and trying to convince him that this is where that match needs to be. Because he's on the board and because he is now involved in the strategic direction of WWE, my guess is that he has agreed. So it's nothing more than a guess, but following what we just saw and the fact that Cody is coming for Roman, I really don't think the fans... I could be wrong. I could be very wrong. But I don't think that all the fans would appreciate The Rock squeezing his way into this situation. The Rock does not need to get involved in this match, right? There's no reason right now for him to insert himself, right? No reason. And I think if he did, there'd be a lot of kids excited and maybe some wrestling fans excited. But I feel very confident because I would feel this way. A lot of people would be like, why has he done that? He does not need to get involved. Cody needs to finish his story. The Rock needs to stay out the way. Triple threat does not feel like the right way to go. At all. Right? So I've got to think they've convinced him to do the Saudi show. Got to think that that's the direction we're going. Kian said, Daze, I hope you are well, having a good stream. It was a good night last night. I can't wait for Cody to finish the story. I'm calling it. Roman's reign is going to come to an end. David said, Daze, Punk now got repackaged now as the ultimate Punk, and now he hits the ring with a walker. There has been a lot of people down on Punk's performance, yeah. It's quite clear that she is not yet ready, but props to her. She's working hard. I don't know who that is, Aaron, that we're talking about, but just to talk about something a little different, but maybe connected. Jordynne Grace, amazing. I think that just to talk about that, apparently there is no plans for WWE to work with TNA. It was a one-off agreement, but... there are lines of communication. Jordynne Grace said this is not the last you'll see of TNA kind of a thing, right? And that got people talking, which, is good that like she put that out there, and it definitely got speculation. But there's been a little bit of clarity come through, just saying that sources are saying as of right now there are no plans. But it doesn't mean that we can't create plans, because the other thing that's been said is that TNA and Jordynne Grace were very easy and accommodating to work with. And of course they would be. I mean, this is like flipping Christmas, right, for them. They jumped on it straight away, and so they should, putting out a tweet talking about Jordynne Grace. You can watch her every Thursday, blah, 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 right? And I don't know about you. I thought she killed it. I mean, it was no surprise because... I don't know much about TNA. You could have had Moose go out there and I would have been lost, right? I wouldn't have a flipping clue. Yeah, I hold my hands up, right? I've only ever seen about 2 Josh Alexander matches, right? So you could have him come out there. I know a bit about him. I believe him to have a wrestling background. I know he used to wear like the amateur wrestling headgear. I don't know if he still does. Used to be like the singlet and whatever, kind of cut from the Kurt Angle, Chad Gable cloth. But yeah, Jordynne Grace is actually probably the TNA star I know most about, because she is someone that caught my eye. I mean, there's not too many women that look like Jordynne Grace. She is jacked. She is a powerhouse. She is the sort of woman that you look at and go, when's she coming to WWE? Because it feels like she's gonna come to WWE eventually. And she just never has for whatever reason. I don't know why. But yeah, it's a very interesting one, that, because I've had loads of people, and I'm sorry to repeat myself, but I've had loads of people going, I don't get the hype around TNA being in the Rumble. We've done it before. And it's like, this is different. It's different because last time WWE wanted Mickie James. The fact she was in TNA was a problem, right? That was not a good thing. That was a bad thing. There was a rumor that went round that Vince said, I don't want Mickie going out with the TNA belt, the women's belt. And they had to say to Vince, no, she's got to. It's the only way that we were allowed to have Mickie. Because a few years back, we didn't maybe have the stacked women's roster we do now. And so we had to use legends a lot more. You know, this is why you would see Michelle McCool, Kelly. You know, this is why, you know, Candice LeRae or Candice Michelle, Layla. I don't know if Caitlyn's ever come back. Tori Wilson. You know, these kinds of names. You know the names. We had to use those because we didn't have the kind of women's roster we do now. And we needed Mickie James, or they felt that we needed Mickie James. So the fact that she was in TNA was a problem. We had no intention to work with TNA. No desire to work with TNA. We just wanted Mickie James. This situation, very different. Because we didn't need Jordynne Grace, right? We didn't need her. And we also have never had her before. She's never been in WWE. She's not a WWE legend. She's someone that, to my knowledge, has never stepped foot in a WWE ring. So the fact that we've gone to TNA and basically said, we want the Rumble to feel like anything can happen. And in order to achieve that, we might need to put in someone that's not even in our promotion, right? Who can we have, or who do you think is best suited or whatever that can kind of tick that box? And, you know, maybe they had their eye on Jordynne Grace anyway, because I think she screams WWE. So maybe they went and said, we'd like Jordynne or whatever, but that was the reason for doing it. It was a very, very different reason. Might have been the same result, but it was a very different reason as to why they did it. And the fact that they got Mickie and they needed Mickie, or felt they needed Mickie, and that TNA, that connection was a problem, right? Compared with them actively going to TNA and saying, we want someone from your promotion because we want the Rumble to feel unpredictable, right? That just shows a more willingness to work with other promotions. That is such a big indicator as to the shift in mindset in WWE. I mean, I've said before, I am guilty of looking at situations and using old references to try and figure out where we're going. And to be perfectly honest, without blowing my own trumpet, it has worked very well for me, right? In the past, I've been able to, I think, understand how Vince works and what Vince thinks and what Vince likes just from watching the show for 30 odd years. And so that has meant that I've felt confident and have done well with predictions in regards to when Vince was in charge. That same mindset doesn't work now. It doesn't work. The things have changed, right? And we are seeing a very clear example with this TNA situation of something that has changed. So that old mindset of, yeah, I know Vince, I know how he works, I know how he operates, doesn't work now. And I've been caught out with it. I've been caught out with it a few times, and it's something I'm still trying to adapt to in this post-Vince McMahon world, this post-Vince McMahon WWE. We're having to watch and kind of learn all over again. This is undeniably one of the most exciting times to watch wrestling, but also to get into wrestling, because it feels like we got the rule book and we went, chucked it away, don't need that anymore. We're not going to run those plays anymore, right? We're going to do a whole new one that's going to be still based on that, right? We'll take the stuff we like from that. I mean, that's got the foundations, right? That's got your Wrestling 101 is in there, but we're going to do things a little different now, right? So, this kind of relationship with TNA, that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. I think investing a bit more in the women's side. I mean, it's not a coincidence that under Vince, the women's roster was, you know, not plentiful or not as big as it is now. We're starting to see the women's rosters really starting to expand a little bit more. You know, again, I wouldn't be surprised if we do eventually bring in a women's intercontinental, a women's mid-card. I could absolutely see us going down those roads. You know, under Vince, I think there's a good chance we would have just pulled the trigger on Roman and forgot Cody. You know, he can wait. You know, he'll finish the story, but we've got to do this first. Whereas we're seeing a bit more commitment to stories. We're seeing longer stories. We're seeing deeper stories. You know, there's a lot of things actually that happen. And we're seeing less silliness. You know, yeah, we've got R-Truth, but you know, that is comedy which is pretty silly at times, but I don't know that it strays into the hey hey ho ho Miz and Morrison shtick, right, that we had to suffer, or the 24/7 championship stuff, which it did include R-Truth, but some of that stuff was not as funny as this. You know, Vince had a very specific sense of humor, and I don't think what we're seeing with R-Truth is kind of the same as some of the R-Truth stuff we saw in the past. This is I am just talking on R-Truth, I am a bit worried about R-Truth because I am worried we're going to overdo it. I actually put a tweet out saying that, just like headline, love R-Truth, and everything he's done so far has worked, right? That's the headline. So it's not a criticism of he sucks or it's rubbish. No, not saying that. All I'm saying is, for me, what we're doing with R-Truth is good and it's working, but we used him a lot at the Royal Rumble. There was backstage footage of him wishing people a happy WrestleMania day. On the kickoff show, he was trying to get into the baseballs because he thought they were the balls that had the numbers in. And he asked, was it Pete Rosenberg? He asked to open it up. Will you help me open them? And he was like, no, they're baseballs. And he's like, okay. So we did that on the kickoff show. He got involved in the women's rumble, obviously coming down because he thought it was the men's. Then in the men's, he came down and tried to tag in, right? Backstage, he got Adam Pearce mixed up with Nick Aldis and was asking where his hair was. And Adam Pearce turned around and went, that's Nick? And R-Truth went, Mysterio, right? So that was backstage, and that was more footage that came out. The point I'm making is, he was all over this show, from the kickoff show to the women's rumble to the men's rumble to backstage, like digital content. And it worked for me, and it was fine. But we are really running the risk of overexposure. You know, we are really running the risk of, like, using this guy too much. Like, I think the R-Truth stuff is funny and good, but it feels like if you need that many comedy moments, if you need that many comedy spots, then we need another comedy person. We need R-Truth doing his thing, and we maybe need a SmackDown equivalent that's doing something else, right? Not getting confused, but just doing something else that's funny, right? And so it takes the pressure off R-Truth, because it's working right now for me and clearly for others. But my concern, and at this stage it's nothing more than a concern, but my concern is that it will get overdone and it will be overexposed. And actually WWE have got a history of that. You know, they've got a history of doing it working, and they do it again and again and again and again and again and again and again, to the point where people go, okay, I don't need this now. You know, a recent example would just be the endless Judgment Day feuds and matches, and just again and again and again and again and again. So love R-Truth. I did put that tweet out, and people are like, nah, he's killing it, right? And yes, he is. I love him. But there was actually some people that contacted and went, nah, it's too much for me already. And I was like, that's interesting. That's interesting. It's interesting that there are people out there that are already starting to feel like this is either being overdone or that it just never was for them in the first place, you know? So, again, with everything in wrestling, there's going to be a opinion all over the place. Some people are going to absolutely love it from the start and never change. Some people are never going to have got on board and are going to hated it from the start, right? And then you're going to have a sliding scale in the middle of people that love it, hate it, too much, not enough, you know. I mean, it's wrestling. Opinion is everywhere. And, you know, feel free to share yours, of course. And that's why we do these streams, and you can put your thoughts in the chat as we're working our way through these topics. Time-wise, we have been going for an hour and a half. I think what we'll do, and it makes sense to get to the 2-hour mark, doesn't it, I suppose? So what we'll do is I'm going to try and stop talking as much, which, as you know, I just don't know that we'll ever achieve that. But for half an hour, I'm going to try and get through as many of these as I can. So I may not give as long answers going forward, right? But I do want to give a long answer to Delwyn, because Delwyn has been so supportive and continues to be. And Delwyn, you don't need to keep firing in super chats of this magnitude, right? You can lower the amount that you actually send. Right, it's greatly appreciated. It massively helps the channel. Right, it definitely keeps the lights on. But I definitely don't want you going like broke either. So Delwyn, I'm going to read yours and try and give you as much as I can. So Delwyn said, "I'm thrilled for Bayley winning the Women's Royal Rumble. She deserved it. Completely agree." Completely agree. We touched on it actually during the Unseen video, because I think that she got injured. She was the MVP for me during the pandemic. You could say she was the women's MVP and Drew was the men's MVP. I think that's fair. So I would say that she was the MVP. If I could only pick one, I would say Bayley. Whenever we bring this up, people are like, nah, it's Drew, or nah, it was Bray, or whatever, right? For me, if I could only pick one person, I would say it was Bayley. Bayley was the MVP of the pandemic era. And so she then got injured just before people came back. I mean, it was mental. It was not long before. It was like a week or two or something like this. It was crazy. She then is out for like nearly a year. And then she comes back at SummerSlam 2022 with Io, with Dakota, and then she's basically spent all of this time taking a bit of a backseat and allowing them to get used to the main roster, allowing them to build their names, and really, you know, helping Damage Control. She's been about damage control. And I think we're getting to the point now where she is now going to break away from that. And we all believe she's going to go and face Io at WrestleMania. And I am so excited for it. And I'm so pleased for her. I mean, she was the winner that we predicted. I mean, not hard. She was firm favorite. And they went with her. But yeah, she was definitely deserving. I think that I'm hoping that what we're going to get over the next few years is her tribal chief reign, right? Because I think she's given enough. You know, she gave everything and killed it during the pandemic era. And if I was to pick an era where it was her tribal chief reign, it was her on top, I would say it was that. I would say it was that, because that was when she was Bayley Doss Straps. That's when she was the women's champ and the women's tag champ with Sasha. So for me, I would say that was her reign. Then she got injured. Then she came back with Damage Control. And I don't think Damage Control have really been as successful as that period. I think they've ate up a lot of TV time, and there's definitely been a lot of purpose, but I don't think they've had the championship reigns, you know, that they enjoyed before. They've had a few tag title reigns. Io obviously won because of winning Money in the Bank, but Bayley has not tasted success. So I think that the Bayley Doss Straps era was her best era, but what I'm hoping for is what we're about to get now is Bayley on top, Bayley being dominant, Bayley being the woman that we remember her being, right? I hope that's what we're on the verge of, because actually I think the women's division needs it. It's a little bit like when AJ was with Omos, and we just was like, not forgetting about AJ, but he was very much on the back burner. And I think we're trying to bring him more to the front now. which is good. But the same with Bayley. Bayley's been on the back burner, and she's such a talent. She's such a great superstar that now we're bringing her to the forefront again. This is very exciting because it's a little bit like her coming back from injury. I mean, she has just been standing at ringside watching Io compete, and she's been like, you know, involved in feuds with like Becky or whatever, and obviously having matches, but it's not the same as like when she was champion defending the title. It's not the same as her coming out cutting promos. Like, there's a lot of her having to stand around whilst others talk, whilst others wrestle, and she's just sort of in a supporting role. So in a way, it's like her coming back from injury. It's like her coming back and now being given the spotlight again. So the fact she's going to have a high-profile match at WrestleMania, I mean, I don't know if this is... I don't think she's ever had a singles match at WrestleMania. I'm trying to think if she has. She was in the triple threat. She didn't have a match at WrestleMania 37. She was in a tag team match at 38. Was she in like a women's tag team thing with Io? At 37, she wasn't there. 36. What did she do at WrestleMania 36? Something in my head says that she's not had a singles WrestleMania match, which is very hard to believe. Has Bayley had a singles WrestleMania match? While Bayley has competed several times at the Showcase of Immortals, she has yet to have a singles match at WrestleMania. Instead, she has competed in Battle Royals, six-pack challenges, tag team matches, and a four-way to retain her women's championship. So she has been there, but she's never had that spotlight on her where it's just her and against one other person, you know? She's always having to be in the background. Like, she's, even at WrestleMania, she's always having to share the spotlight with loads of other women. Or in Damage Control, she's always having to stand around. Like, you've got one of the best female wrestlers in the world there, and right now she is going to get the opportunity, hopefully, to have her first one-on-one match at WrestleMania. And I'm really here for it. I'm really excited for it. Didn't she face Tamina? What did she do at WrestleMania 36? That's going to bug me now. That was an article that I just read that said she hadn't. What did she do at WrestleMania 36? Here we go. That was a fatal five-way. Tamina was in it, but so was Sasha, Lacey, and Naomi. So that was on day 2, and it was a fatal five-way. And to be perfectly honest with you, since watching that and doing the live watch-along for it, I don't think I've ever gone back. I don't think I've ever gone back to watch this WrestleMania. It's funny because at the time we were like, this is a WrestleMania we'll never forget. It's so historic, and that was absolutely true. But it was also awful. Right? I've got very little desire to go back to it. There's really not much there that I hold in high regard. So not a classic Mania 36, but understandably so. Right, yeah, so I agree with you. She deserves it. She turns babyface soon, and we get Io Sky's title reign. I'm glad Cody wins big again for the second time. It's amazing. This is the year he finishes the story. He's going to win the WWE Championship. So, yeah, I agree. I think that Bayley is deserving. I think she turning face would make sense because if she's going to face Io, she's going to have to. So, yeah, completely agree. Cody winning a second time, amazing. Well, yeah, I'm not against it. I'm really not. I think that it was actually a surprise. I think it was so obvious for a while that he was, you know, potentially going to win again and then go on to face Roman. But then what happened is CM Punk came back and people started talking about Gunther and could Gunther win and then face Seth. And all of a sudden, Cody started to kind of fall down the pecking order. And as I said, from the moment Punk came back, that's the moment I felt good that it would actually be him that was winning. I think just before that I had Gunther, and then just before that I had Cody. So I kind of went through all of them, and it turned out to be Cody. So I kind of feel like he was one of the favorites, but it was so obvious that he was going to potentially face Roman, that if that was going to happen, he was going to have to win the Rumble. People went, it's too obvious. They won't have him win the Rumble, because if he is going to face Roman, they'll have him win the Chamber, right? And I made the argument, I wouldn't even do that. I'd go even later, right? Put obstacles in his way. For some reason, WWE have gone, do you know what? You've all worked yourself into all this kind of confusion, right? So, some of you think you're like, you know, you've got the Cody thing planned. You know, we're going to do The Rock. You don't even know if it's going to be Cody. You don't know if it's going to be The Rock. You don't know if it's CM Punk. Like, they honestly just got us twisted. They got me twisted. Got me all tied up in all kind of knots. So, and it's in a good way. In a good way. I'm not even saying it in a like it was bad. It was great. I'm so tired of WrestleManias and WrestleMania seasons being super, super obvious, right? There's no way this was obvious, because we didn't know if it was Rock Roman or if it was Roman versus Cody. So without knowing what the main event was, it made it hard to then go back and, like, you know, book the rest. So even if you knew it was Roman Cody, a lot of people, myself included, were saying they'll put obstacles in his way. Look at Daniel Bryan. They put obstacles in his way. They won't have him win the Rumble. They'll save it for the Chamber. I wouldn't even do it then. I'd save it later. So even if you thought it was Roman versus Cody, there was still only a small percentage of people that thought that meant that Cody would win the Rumble. So honestly, you can overthink things. I certainly do. And get yourself in all kinds of knots. And this is why they've just gone, you know what, we're just going to do the simple thing. We want to do Roman Cody, and in order to get there, Cody wins the Rumble. Done. And we're kind of left going, yeah, of course, yeah, that makes sense. It's, yeah, I don't mind it, because it's an obstacle actually for CM Punk now, and it also means that Cody, the main event of WrestleMania, is set, so we can just shout that, advertise that, you know, we can now spend months talking about finishing the story, and you too can finish the story in 2K24. So I think that he is now the one of 4 two-time winners, 2 years in a row, blah, 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 blah. There's a lot, isn't there? There's I haven't got any bad feelings about it. I think it's great. I'm pleased for Cody. This is why I suppose the ending of the Rumble was not as impactful for me, because, you know, if Cody wins, great. I want him to finish the story. If CM Punk wins, great. I want him to be treated as a major star that main events WrestleMania. So they both were fighting for things, and I was quite happy for either to have them. So, yeah, I agree. I was pleased. I was pleased with both the winners. I had no problems. Darwin said the Women's Rumble was undoubtedly the highlight of the night. Probably the best Women's Rumble they've ever had, in my opinion. Jade Cargill, my God, she looks like $1,000,000. Debut was awesome moments, and I'm glad to see Naomi is back too. Well, I think that's an interesting conversation. I think it's a tricky one, because I mean, we've obviously done, I think, watch-alongs for every Women's Rumble. Might not have done the first one. So, we've seen them. We've watched them, but I don't know if we've done watch-alongs for everyone. And to be perfectly honest with you, I just remember a lot of them being a lot of legends which came out and don't really do it for me, because I do like the legends and I love the past, but there's a lot of women that I just don't think contributed to the same level. I don't think we're allowed to contribute to the same level as the women are now. And so it kind of means when they come out, you're like, oh, yeah, that's cool. You know, oh, lovely to see her. I hope she's well. You know, you've got good feelings towards them. And you know, it's like, oh, that's nice. Lovely to see her. Oh, she looks great. You know, that kind of a thing. But it's not, oh, my God. Oh, no way. Rarely did it get that kind of reaction from me. I feel like Naomi coming back was big. I feel like Jade Cargill making her debut was big. I feel like Bayley being so deserving of winning was great. I feel like Jordynne Grace, us going up to TNA going, can we have Jordynne Grace? Amazing. Couple of NXT people in there, Roxanne and Tiffany. There was a lot of fodder, right? Without being disrespectful. There was a lot of people that were just not really doing much with that found their way into the Rumble. So I think I would say it was the best as well that we've had of the women's Rumbles, but I can't say it with a great degree of confidence because I remember loving the one that Asuka won, for example. But I think this had a fair bit to it. It was well received. People enjoyed it. The reviews we had reflected that. So I think it was well received. But I think it is also a Rumble that can be beaten. That's probably how I would word it. Because I think there was just a lot of... And fodder is really, I suppose, a disrespectful thing to say. But I think that there was a lot of people that just aren't creatively involved in anything that big or haven't been. Xia Li, for example. I have no issue with Xia Li, but we have not really done anything with her. She had a little thing where Becky was champ and she was interested in going after Becky and whatever. And then we just haven't seen her. Just haven't seen her. We haven't built her up. We haven't done anything with her. We haven't done anything. And it's hard to get excited if Maxine Dupree comes out, you know? I mean, we've seen enough of her to know that she is limited with a capital L. She did that kind of backwards caterpillar thing, which, you know, was a fun little moment. But yeah, like the Chelsea stuff, though, that was great. Chelsea was fantastic in that, where she was getting splashed by Piper and then splashed by Nia and... You know, oh my God, she was just ragdolled. So, yeah, Chelsea did a fantastic job. I think you're right. I think there was enough there to say it was the best. I think that we have yet to have the men's 1992 Royal Rumble, right? Have we ever had? We haven't, have we? Where the winner gets the belt. I can't remember one where the winner is crowned women's champion. Maybe if we do that at some point and we make sure that all 30 women that are going to be involved have been used recently and been in good stories, that then would do it. That would do it. That to me would then surpass it. So as long as you also put in, like, you know, a surprise TNA, the TNA name whenever we do that. So Darwin, I really appreciate the support. I've spent time going through in detail, line by line, what your comments were, and I agree. I don't think I disagree with anything you've said. The only thing I would add is that, as I said, I think that Women's Rumble can be beaten. I think it can be beaten, but I'm going to agree with you that it was the best so far. Clutch said, Orton is the most overstar on the roster right now. LA Knight has dried up. He did still get a good reaction, though. He got a good reaction, LA Knight, when he came out, I thought. But, yeah, it's always going to be difficult to maintain that kind of momentum. And the problem that LA Knight has got is that, you know, people love LA Knight, and I believe they still do. But here's Randy. Here's CM Punk. Cody's trying to finish his story. You know, there's so many things that's like, look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this shiny thing, look at that shiny thing, look at this shiny thing. You know, you can't blame fans going, oh, yeah, I like that. Oh, that's good. Oh, yeah, that's good. And then LA Knight, they're like, oh, yeah, I like this guy. Whereas I think there was a period there where it was nowhere near as competitive as what it is now. And so I think he was able to get a bit more attention. So, look, I mean, these are the big leagues, man. These are the challenges. You know, ask Sami Zayn about the fight and the struggle to get recognition and get noticed. Ask Liv Morgan, you know. I know she's had a women's title reign, but I think we can all agree it wasn't booked very well, and she hasn't been around that title since. So there's a lot of people in WWE that are fighting and battling and clawing and scratching and, you know, really desperately trying to get somewhere, and LA Knight is in that fight. But he's done a great job in a real short space of time. I've no doubt they've got some big plan for him for WrestleMania. Probably beating Logan, and then we'll have to see, you know, will the fans continue supporting him when he's got a title? Will there be a demand for him to get to like the world title level? I think WWE are sort of playing it by ear. I think they've got plans. I think they do their plans in like 3-month chunks. So I think him being US champ, I feel good about. Him having a run with the title, I feel good about. But it is going to come down, I think, to what the fans decide then. You know, if that support is going to hold, we could go somewhere very interesting. But if that support starts to wane, then maybe, you know, it just was not a flash in the pan. It's been going too long to be a flash in the pan, but maybe he just wasn't able to kind of hold his ground whilst CM Punk came in, whilst Randy came. I mean, it would be a real shame for him, actually, because it's not very fair, is it? You know? It's not very fair that he got himself so over and then all these people have come in and as a result, like, the attention has settled down. So I do feel for him, to be honest. I do feel for him. I'm starting to feel sympathy for LA Knight because I think he did kind of explode. And now, like, that's, you know, there is maybe a little dip down. I don't think it's as drastic as what I'm seeing some say on social media. Some people are like, oh, he's dead, buried, blah, blah, blah. I don't agree with that. I just think that it was going to be always hard to keep it up here. Oh, you know, it has probably just a little edge has come off it. But I don't know, we'll see. I'll have something big at WrestleMania. Bishop said, why don't WWE do Cyber Sunday or Taboo Tuesdays? They've not done them for years, but I think that it's just up to Triple H. So they could do it and they could bring them back. I'm sure that at some point it's something that's been discussed, because I would imagine when Triple H took over, one of the things he would have considered is, what do I want my premium live events to be? Because I don't know about you, if I was to take over, that's something I would think about. What's the shows I'm actually working towards? Are they good enough? Do they do what I need them to do? I think part of the problem with like Cyber Sunday and all that kind of stuff is that it's very hard to have good matches when you don't know what the match is going to be, because you can't rehearse the match. So if you're going to do Cyber Sunday and then, like, you know, you have fans vote, I would make the argument that you should get the results like 2 weeks before the actual show, because the wrestlers need to start working on the match. You know, the wrestlers need to know really what they're doing well before they get to the show, because of course they rehearse. I mean, it's not a coincidence that Kevin Owens and Logan were both at the Performance Center and they got into a brawl, right? They were there because they were working together on their Royal Rumble match, and they were trying to make sure that it was going to be as the best thing that they could present. They know that these premium live event matches are important. You don't want to phone in a premium live event. You want to make sure that it delivers. People get excited for them. Everything builds towards them. And I think part of the problem was when you had so many options that the matches could be, yes, it's very exciting for people to vote, for us to have a say, but there is a downside in that the wrestlers go into it not knowing what the result is going to be. And so that then means that they can't rehearse it, and then the match doesn't live up to standards. It's not as good as it could be. And, you know, you're facing a bit of an uphill challenge. So there are pros and cons to it. I think if there is a demand for it, if people really did want it back, then I would say the best thing to do is actually vote and get the results in the weeks leading up to the event, and at least a week before, we then know what the card looks like. So you still get to vote on it, you still get to have your say, but I wouldn't reveal the results on the show unless what you do is you vote on it you close the poll like 2 weeks before, and you don't announce what the match is going to be until the show, right? So in kayfabe, the results are announced on the show and the wrestlers find out on the show, right? In reality, the poll ended 2 weeks ago and the wrestlers already knew what the match was, so they could prepare for it. The point is, there's a bit of work there, right? However you want to do it, there's a bit of work there, and it's work that WWE has not felt is necessary, right? If they did, they would have done it. But that has traditionally been the problem with like a Cyber Sunday or a Taboo Tuesday. So will they bring it back? We have no idea. I've not heard of it coming back, so I would be leaning towards no at this stage. But Triple H mustn't really have much good feelings towards it, because if he did, I'm sure he would have either brought it back or we would have heard word of it coming back. And there's been nothing. So it's that's the reason as to why it has not been a regular feature. I don't think the end results were deemed good enough. I love how lately the stories have got layers, said Dead Man Talking, and they carry over to the next story between different people. Josh said Jade should have been in a class of her own. I think that was BS. Jade should have been in a class of her own. I think that was BS. What do you mean? Don't know what you mean. Jade Cargill should have been in a class of her own. Don't know what you mean, Josh. Pop it in. Give me a follow-up if I see it, and I'll try and get to it. MJR619 said, did you notice the air left the building after certain people who were speculated be in it, but it didn't appear? It seemed like it with the crowd. Hang on. Did you notice the air left the building after certain people who were speculated to be in it, but didn't appear? It seemed like it with the crowd. I don't know what that means. So Brock was rumored to be in the Rumble. He wasn't in the Rumble. I don't think that played any part in the reaction to the crowd. I don't think the crowd were like, is number 30 going to be Brock? And then it wasn't, and then I don't know what that means. To me, the crowds, there was nothing on the show that connected to the allegations other than the Slim Jim stuff, right? I don't know about you, but when I saw the Slim Jim stuff, that made me think about it, because they played a big part in Vince resigning. So Slim Jim coming back, I've actually got real mixed feelings on, and I've expressed that during the Rumble stream. The reason why I got mixed feelings is because I never had a problem watching the Rumble, but they had a problem supporting it. So, like, I understand they're a business, and I understand they're trying to protect their business, right? So in that regard, I understand. This is why I said I was conflicted, because in that regard, I understand. But on another regard, I do think, well, I didn't have a problem watching the Rumble, and I didn't see anyone else having a problem. So why did they? Why did they have a problem? Right? I understand the allegations, right? And I understand that would seem like they were associating, but this Vince is well away now, you know? He's not in charge of creative. He's at a board level, and you've got like Nick Khan as the CEO. You've got the whole thing is clearly going to trial and all this kind of stuff. So I don't know. That to me left me a bit like, I understand why they did it. I really do. But it was a move that was at odds with how I felt. I didn't have a problem watching SmackDown on Friday. At no point did I think, oh, I don't know if I should watch SmackDown. I don't know if I should do the watch-alongs. Like, at no point did I think that. And at no point did I think that about the Royal Rumble. At no point did I think, you know, am I right to be doing the wrestling content I'm doing right now? Should I switch to like more UFC focus for the time being? Like, no, I didn't, and I don't think any other wrestling channel did. And I didn't see people saying boycott the network or boycott Peacock or boycott WWE or anything like this. So really, it felt like Slim Jim kind of came out and made a stance on their own, like a little bit at odds to where the wrestling fans were. I think the wrestling fans were like, oh, it's not good, is it? This is uncomfortable, right? Not good, right? That was how we reacted, or a lot of us reacted. Some reacted, Vince is guilty, kill him, right? And others reacted in different ways. But I think a lot of us were like, oh man, this is dark, this is uncomfortable. But I don't think any of us thought we're not going to watch the Rumble, pay Peacock. But they came out and were like, nah, we're putting it on pause, right? Which, again, I keep having to say I'm conflicted, because I am, because part of me goes, well, they're a business and, it's their choice. But then, of course, as soon as Vince resigns, they come back on board. So they played such a big part in this, that seeing their logo slapped everywhere, seeing them, the car, and seeing the advertisements, and seeing, like, slap into a Slim Jim, and it's all, like, fun and cheery and colourful and bright and everything. Like, I don't know, it left a bit of a... Oh, man. I suppose, in a way, they became a part of it, in the sense of... if they hadn't took the stance they took, I don't know if Vince would have resigned. So a lot of people will celebrate them, but I am just left a bit like confused about them. That's the only thing I saw on the show that made me think of the allegations. There was nothing else that made me think of them. So when the Slim Jim logo came up, if that had affected the crowd mood, I would have agreed. But the fact that Brock wasn't there, I don't know that was a talking point. I don't know that that took the life out of the room or anything. I think the truth is that the men's rumble just was not as good as the women's rumble. That's the truth. I think if the men's rumble had actually been a bit more exciting, I think that the atmosphere would have been better. So that's how I see it anyway. James said the Pat spot I kind of hated, but I get it. It was a wasted spot from someone else and who deserved it. I mean, look, I don't like the guy, right? He said that he didn't know that was going to happen. I don't believe him, right? I don't believe that because how would he know to do what he did? How would he know to climb up, get in the ring, climb out, get back in, and then eliminate himself? Like, how would he know to do that if he didn't know that he was in the Rumble, right? So I find it very hard to believe that he didn't know that he was in the Rumble. I think the truth is that he maybe didn't know what number he was going to be, and he maybe didn't know the exact moment that his music was going to play. But I find it hard to believe he didn't know he was in the Rumble, because the clear follow-up question would be, well, how did you know to do what you did? How did you know to not get in there and just start swinging away at Bron Breakker? I mean, how would he know to not do that? How would he know to do what he did? So this is why I really struggle with that. But, I mean, I'm not the right person for this conversation, am I? Because I hate the guy. I absolutely hate. I think he brings nothing. I think the bottom line is, and I feel this way about Bad Bunny. If he did not have the podcast he had, if he didn't have that podcast, he would not be involved. He is not there for his skill or his abilities. He's there because of his platform. And it's just a very sad world we live in where, I'm not, and this is honest, if this channel was to get to, say, 10 million views, 10 million subscribers, right, and we had a very engaged wrestling audience, I feel very confident WWE would hit me up and ask me to get involved, right? I've got no previous skill, training, anything like this, but I'm very confident that that's unfortunately a ticket to getting involved, and it's just the side of the industry I really, really hate. Really hate it. I really hate it. we have to watch Bad Bunny have matches, right? And they have to work so hard to make them entertaining. We have to bring back Savio Vega, Carlito. We have to have the LWO rundown. We have to have Judgment Day rundown. We have to have Damian Priest bumping like a madman, going like, you know, doing all these spots and everything. And it's like, I mean, that was a really bad look for Damian Priest. And I don't know about you, but for me, it's still lingered. It's very hard for me to see Damian Priest as a world's title holder when I've watched him lose to Bad Bunny, who is a singer. I know Bad Bunny acts like he's tough, right? Walking around like he's God's gift to combat sports. But look at the size of the guy, right? Compared to like some of the people in WWE. Like, unfortunately, there are people in this world that want to take shortcuts. There are people in this world that want to skip the queue. And the fact that he is one of the most streamed musicians in the world shouldn't mean that he can skip the queue to have matches and beat wrestlers. I will never agree to this. This will never be something that I see as acceptable. I will go to my grave arguing this point, so we don't need to dig it all up again. But I just, it is the dark side of this that I hate. You know, I think part of it is because I so wish that wrestling was real. I so wish this was real. I so wish that this was not scripted and that this was, you know, us doing a competition to try and find who is the best. And I think if it was real, then none of this would happen. You know, you don't see Bad Bunny going into the UFC. You don't see Bad Bunny giving it a go in the cage because he would be murdered, right? He'd be turned into rabbit stew, right? He wouldn't be a Bad Bunny. He would be a dead bunny, right? But they don't do that, do they? They don't go into the UFC cage. They don't go into the MMA worlds because they'd have broken bones, right? But because wrestling is scripted, it's become acceptable. It's become acceptable, and I think it's really funny how when there is someone like Logan who gets it a bit more, shall we say, have you noticed how the wrestlers and how even Triple H talk about how these people come into their worlds and don't quite get it? You know, they don't quite understand. And that's what makes Logan so special, because he's come into their world and he's got it, right? So they're trying to put Logan over. They're trying to say Logan's amazing. He's not like the other celebrities. He doesn't just come in for one-off hits. I think Cena said this to Logan on his last podcast. You haven't just come in for like a one-off appearance. Like, you're doing this and you're doing it consistently and you're really putting the work in. So they're trying to put Logan over. But in that same breath, are they not also showing you how they really feel about some of those other celebrity appearances? Is it in the same breath not telling you how they really feel about some of those celebrities they've brought in literally just to use their platforms, right? I'm not saying they're talking about Pat in this, right? Forget Pat. God knows I try. I'm talking about like just any celebrities, your Snookies or whatever, right? They'll tell you that, oh my God, they're amazing, brilliant, you did a great job, blah, 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 blah. And then a few years later, you hear different, like what John Cena's saying to Logan Paul. Like, they'll tell you the tune they want you to hear at the time. That's the truth, right? That's the truth. They'll tell you the tune they want you to hear at the time. Whereas I think my message is fairly consistent. If you're not a highly trained combat fighter of any degree, right? If you're a boxer like Tyson Fury, I can buy that, because you're clearly one of the most skilled strikers in the world. You are clearly bringing some combat skills to the ring. I can buy that. I haven't got a problem with that. If you're a kickboxer like Andrew Tate, right? I'm not saying bring Andrew Tate in, but I'm saying if you are a kickboxer, you are bringing some sort of skill into the ring, right? If you are a singer, right? Unless you're going to do the national anthem, jog on, right? Jog on. I've got no desire to watch you compete in a ring. No desire. You can forget Taylor Swift against Bianca Belair. I ain't buying it, right? I ain't buying it. And actually, you can forget Nicki Minaj and you can forget Cardi B. I know that they've got a bit more of an edge to them than, say, Taylor Swift does. You know, I'm sure Cardi B is no stranger to scraps and fights, right? I mean, I think she used to work as a stripper and everything, so I'm pretty sure that, you know, she's probably been involved in a fair share of scuffles. And I'm sure that Taylor has not, right? She's a country girl that probably hasn't. So I understand that in people's minds, they may bring a little more. But what we're meant to be watching with wrestling is highly trained professionals. We're meant to be watching people that can stretch you within an inch of your life. Meant to be watching people that can put you in holds that you just can't even understand. You know, they can break arms and snap fingers and just, like, you know about the dungeon. You know about old man Stu Hart, who, like, oh, come here, you know, grabs a hold of a wrestler, has got him screaming in pain as he's, like, hitting all the pressure points at the same time. That's pro wrestling to me. That's what pro wrestling was, and in my eyes is, right? I know things change. I know I'm a boomer, but to me, I think the dungeon, I think Stu Hart, I think him, old man in his 70s, grabbing some young 20-year-old guy and having them screaming in pain. Screaming. Because it's an art, it's a skill, there are pressure points, there are holds, there are things that you can apply to people that's going to make them pass out, tap out, wet themselves. You know, there's so many different things that you can do. The idea that Bad Bunny can get in there, or these celebrities can get in there with these meant to be highly trained professional wrestlers, I find it offensive, but I know I'm in the minority. You set me off there, James. And you knew you would. You knew what you was doing. Right, let's go down. Johnny said, Daze, why is... I know we said we were going to go, but then I cheated you because Delwyn sent in those super chats. So we are going to stick around just that little longer. Do you know what? We'll get to the hour. Whatever happens now, we'll get to the hour. Yeah? I'm giving you my time. But you're giving me your time as well, and it's appreciated. Johnny said, Daze, why is Bray Wyatt's last match anniversary hard for me? He meant so much. Today has been a hard day. Do other people get this way? Yes and no. I think, unfortunately, I don't know how old you are, Johnny, to be honest, but I think, unfortunately, as you get older, and I am a boomer, as you get older, you do go through this a lot. You know, unfortunately, we have suffered a lot of loss in the wrestling world. And obviously, there's going to be some bad people that did bad things that pass away, like Benoit. There's going to be some amazing people that you have affections for, like Bray, like Brody Lee, like Eddie Guerrero. You know, like Owen Hart in '99. And so, unfortunately, you know, if you're younger, this is probably something that you've experienced for the first time. If you're older, then the sad truth is you go through it a bit, actually. It obviously depends how much the wrestler meant to you in regards to, like, it was my favorite wrestler, I only watched for them. That's going to have a much bigger impact on you than if it's a wrestler that you watched and loved their work, but you watched them along with others, right? So, you know, we've lost Macho Man, we've lost Ultimate Warrior, we've lost Rowdy Roddy Piper, we've lost Gorilla Monsoon, we've lost Bobby the Brain Heenan, we've lost, you know, Iron Sheik, we've lost so many. Wrestling, unfortunately, is, you know, a pursuit that has traditionally led in lives being shortened and health problems maybe being exaggerated, made worse, right? So, as I said, I think, unfortunately, this is something that we go through as wrestling fans, and I'm not saying that it gets easier. I'm not saying that because, you know, I'm not saying that. I think what I'm saying is you just get a bit more used to it, and I think you accept that is also life, if that makes sense. You can't have life without death, and death is sadly always there. I mean, we will hear of a wrestling death soon, I've no doubt. I don't wish it, but you know, it happens fairly consistently. So yeah, it's heartbreaking. I'm sure many of you can recount wrestlers that we've lost that hit you hard. I know the Brody Lee one hit a lot of people hard. Clearly the Bray hit people hard, that loss. Razor Ramon, Scott Hall, I think that one hit people quite hard as well. Briscoe, when Briscoe passed away, you know, that was a car accident that hit people hard. I think the Ultimate Warrior, clearly he had a bad past and he had said some awful stuff, but we had just got him maybe back in the family with the Hall of Fame induction on the Saturday. I think it was the Saturday or the Friday. WrestleMania appearance, Raw appearance, and then passed away on the Tuesday. Do you know, I remember being at work, working in retail, and I remember a guy coming in that used to come in on a regular basis. He knew I liked wrestling. And he was like, oh, man, did you see WrestleMania? And I was like, yeah, but the Warrior. Can't believe it. And he's like, I know, man. Hall of Fame. He deserves it. And he was like, I've not seen the speech from Raw yet. Because obviously it happened the other day, like whatever. And I was like, no. He passing away. And he was like, what? And I remember having distinctly this conversation with this guy that used to come into the shop every Monday. No, it was every Monday or Tuesday. And literally the news had broke like a few hours before. And he hadn't heard. He hadn't heard. And I remember saying to him, like, the Warrior, and talking to him about like that. And he was like, yeah, man, he deserves it, Hall of Fame. And because he hadn't heard, he thought I was talking about that. And so I told him, and he couldn't, like, I was there when he found out. And it's unbelievable. So, yeah, I mean, look, there's going to be, just going back to Bray, there are Bray fan clubs, and there are people, you know, I see on my notifications people that are like, you know, I miss you and all that kind of stuff, and they're still really feeling it in regards to Bray specifically. So, no, you're not alone. I mean, what I would say is that, I don't know if you already are, but I would go into some of them fan clubs, you know, and you can, like, maybe share some of the positive things that you remember and see some of the great moments and relive some of those. And hopefully, you know, as time goes by, there'll be other wrestlers that come in and grab your interest, and it will help you then move on. I could understand, you know, right now there's no one like Bray, and there never will be anyone like Bray, but there will be someone that comes along and serves that darker side of wrestling, you know? We had Undertaker, for example. There will be someone that comes along and leans into that world. They'll never be Bray, but you may still get enjoyment from them, and you then may start to connect with them a bit more, and then you know, that might help you move on from the loss. So it's something that you shouldn't dwell on, you know. It's hard to not, but life is for living. Yeah, Bray lived his life, had a great family, and no one wishes on him what happened to him, but he lived his life to the fullest, right? Had a fantastic run, and it would have continued. Bray would not want you to be affected in, like, as severely as what you are. So I think you need to kind of process that, think about that, and not allow it to kind of drag you down, because Bray wouldn't want that. I'm going to make a tribute to Bray. I'm going to make a shelf and put a load of stuff on it. That's how much he meant to me, says Johnny. David said the Warrior's death was shocking. I remember there was a fake story that Vince had his food poisoned. I seriously doubted it, but who knows? What, that Vince had Warrior's food poisoned? I never heard that. I mean, I don't believe it, but I'd never actually heard that. I don't have too long to live if I run into Trini in a supermarket, says William. None of us would. Dead Man Talking said, I always wondered, is it cool when old people use newer terms like Riz, for example? I don't think it matters. In regards to who is judging them. Because if an old person, like me using Boomer, uses Riz or something like that, people younger than me are going to think I'm an absolute cringe-asaurus, which they do already. Just for using cringe-asaurus, they think I'm cringe-asaurus, right? But I think amongst people like a similar age, you know, same age as me, 21, they're not going to think I'm not cool, I wouldn't imagine, right? So it's all from the perspective of the person that is on the receiving end of it. I mean, you know, I know that there's people in my life that I've seen that have been older than me that have tried to use younger language, and it never comes across well. It never comes across as natural, right? Never comes across as like a right fit. It's kind of like that language, in a way, belongs to the youth. In a way, you know, no one's saying you can't use it, but they came up with it. And so in a way it's theirs. You can adopt it, I suppose, but it is going to be jarring. So I don't know. I suppose the best answer is it depends who's on the receiving end. If someone was to use Riz, as much as you can say would someone look at you as being uncool, you could also turn the tables and say that anyone using Riz is clearly not from my generation. So if someone uses something like Riz, I'm going to really question their life experience. And I'm going to really question, you know, if someone was to ask a question and use like the word Riz in there, unsarcastically, just honestly, that may be an indicator that it's a younger person. And it might actually make me wonder as to, for example, if you had someone coming at you on Twitter and they were like, man, your Riz is all off or something like this, right? How much are you going to take that comment seriously? Because to be honest, as someone that's lived a life, right? If I'm going to get into some sort of conversation with someone about wrestling or about whatever, and they're going to use language which I associate with a younger generation, straight away I'm under the impression I'm speaking to someone that doesn't have the same life experience as me. So I think as much as you can look at it and go, how cool is it for an older person to use that language, I think you could actually flip it and go, I think it's an indicator that the person is maybe not got the same life experience as what you've got, and maybe then might make you think about how you proceed with the conversation you're going to have. You know, if someone around my age that's watched wrestling for as long as I've watched wants to get into a conversation with me about wrestling and is really heated and whatever, I'm going to treat them different to someone that's 12 or 16 or 18. The problem with social media is you don't know about how old the person on the other end is. You know, we may engage, I might engage now with people that are like 10, 12. You know what I mean? I have no idea how old anyone is. All I see is what you see, which is just text on screen. All of you could be in a nursery right now. Every single one of you could be 8 years old. Right? We could be having these really deep conversations about Vince and the allegations and, you know, like the trial, like really getting into some deep stuff. I might be talking to a load of kindergarten kids. I have no idea. No idea whatsoever. So, you know, it is, it may be an indicator actually that, you know, you're speaking to someone that's younger and might make you think about the language that you use and the kind of approach you would have to a conversation with them. William said, Daze, your mom wouldn't let me finish the story last night. Lol. I do like that. That's good. I'm going to use that if any of those kids come after me. Bill said, I was hoping R-Truth would somehow win the Rumble. David said, Taylor Swift versus Katy Perry. Let's go. Let's go. Actually, do you know what? I'd be a lot more into that. If we was to do celebrity against celebrity, I'd be a lot more into that. I think the thing that offends me the most on that, and we're not going back to that, is the fact the end result is that the wrestler has to look weakened somehow. I love that guy that showed up the other day on SmackDown. You know, that guy that was backstage and he looked intimidated by Solo Sikoa. Oh, mate, he's welcome back anytime. Brilliant. That makes just brilliant. So for him to stand there and be all like sheepish and intimidated as Solo like circles round him, I was like, yeah, man. That to me is what getting it looks like. That's what getting it looks like. If you really get it, that's what getting it looks like. Being like intimidated, putting the wrestlers over, right? The rule number one should be that the wrestlers are gods, right? They are, you treat the characters, maybe them as people are not. Clearly, you know, we're seeing behind the scenes and we're seeing some of these people are not gods, right? But the characters that we see on screen, they are superhumans. They are highly trained, like killing machines. You don't step up to them and give them aggro or anything, right? So that dude, that singer, whatever he was, Emily Carrion or whatever he was called, him being like all like this, I was like, man, mad respect. Love that guy. Edward said, Daze, my mum hated the Logan finish. She stood up and shouted at the TV like a damn raj. A damn raj. I don't know what that means. But I don't know that she hated the finish for the same reason that a Wrestling Observer hated the finish. I think a lot of people hated it because they wanted Kevin to win. But he was never winning, right? We never believed, wrestling fans never believed he was winning because we expect Logan to go to WrestleMania and drop the title there. So we had to find a creative way of Kevin losing. So I actually thought they did a good job. I thought they did a good job of finding a way. If you have to have him lose, how do you do it? So my sneaky feeling, and I could be wrong, but my sneaky feeling is that your mom hated it, not because she didn't think it was a clever finish, but because she wanted Kevin Owens to win, which is how wrestling works. You should want the face to win, and Kevin was the face. Bill said CM Punk needs to finish his story. Simple said, who in mind do you think is the best booker of all time? Who is the best booker of all time? That is very difficult because my knowledge of the territories is not brilliant. So, you know, I think about like the original Sheik, and I think about Jim Crockett, and of course the number one name you think about is Vince McMahon. I'm really trying not to say Vince because that's just the obvious answer, isn't it? And I'm trying to think if there is anyone else that gives him a run for his money. The booking of Antonio Inoki was not actually that well received. It did some fantastic stuff, but also he wanted to take wrestling in a very specific direction. He wanted it to be like quite realistic, you know. And so we started to see a lot of MMA influence coming into wrestling in Japan, and he ended up getting frustrated and going in a different direction. So over in Japan, you could look at Inoki and you could look at the Giant Baba, but I think you have to look at the end results, do you not? Surely a great booker is someone that books matches that people want to see and then continues to do that, allowing their promotions to stay on top. The problem you've got, though, is that WWE got to a point where it was so big and so successful, it actually created a monopoly. So it meant now, like, can anyone replace WWE? Because for the longest time, people will say WWE was not very good. It was rubbish. But because it was so big, so recognized, its position at top was not in threat. You know, TNA never really threatened. You know, AEW certainly is not threatened. But if you used to ask people, they would say, well, Tony's booking, or certainly around 2021, was strong, was really good. It's not that way now. That's what people, I think the average person would say. It's not as good now. Even Tony put a tweet out the other day saying 2024 AEW is going to be like 2021 AEW. So even he has acknowledged that 2021 was a special year for that company. If you look at Wrestling Observer's category, you'll see that they select a lot of New Japan. So if you want to talk about like the wrestling fan base, certainly when it comes to the Observer, New Japan is recognized as the best promotion for year after year after year after year after year. So I actually don't know who's done the booking for them in the 2000s, but they would feel like they would deserve a shout, and Vince deserves a shout. You know, I think you can look at the territories, you can look at New Japan, you can talk about Tony in recent years, but I think the truth is that WWE clearly got it right in the Attitude Era, which took them to a different level. I think they maintained it well during Ruthless Aggression, and I think that that Vince definitely deserves his flowers. I do think he is. Is he the best booker? It's a really good question. I think that there are years where he was, and then I think the years that he wasn't, the company was so big he could just ride it anyway. So Vince might have to be my answer. But there is, I'm sure, a Best Booker award that they actually do in the Wrestling Observer and have done for a long time. So it'll be very interesting to have a look at the results of that. Most underrated, Rookie of the Year, Best Non-Wrestler, Best Major Wrestling Show, Worst Major Wrestling Show, TV Show, Worst Match of the Year, Worst Feud of the Year, Worst Promotion. Here it is. Here's what we wanted. Here is what we wanted. So, obviously, you've got to take this with a pinch of salt because it is just one wrestling magazine's thoughts. But, you know, I'd say this is a pretty interesting wrestling magazine. Again, like we just said with the Attitude Era, even Wrestling Observer recognized Vince in 98, 99, and 2000. Jim Cornette for OVW makes sense, right? Because they were killing it. That's the class that's got Batista and Brock and Cena. I mean, I do think he's blessed with incredible talent. But, you know, I think it's fine to recognize that. He even gets a shout for Smoky Mountain, which is cool. Choshu for New Japan. And Baba throughout those 3 years there. Vince getting a mention in 87. So there's a few different names that are in the pot, right? Gabe Sapolsky is a really interesting name, actually, for Ring of Honor in that period. But I think the point I'm making, right, to try and summarize this, is look at how many different names there are. So there isn't one name here that's just got the whole thing, you know? It's not like the 90s belong to one person. It's not like the 2000s belong to one person. We are seeing a lot of New Japan, as we thought, with Gedo. Gedo from 2016 to 2019 getting that nod, and again here throughout 2011, 2014. So you could say New Japan in recent years. I think this Gabe Sapolsky shout is excellent, actually, and that's, without looking at this list, that's not one I would have come up with, but it is true that Ring of Honor with Seth Rollins, Tyler Black, with Kevin Steen, with Nigel McGuinness, who's now obviously doing commentary, with Daniel Bryan, you know, that period here, Samoa Joe and all that kind of stuff, that probably was the best stuff that was going on in wrestling at that time. So Gedo, New Japan deserves a shout. Gabe Sapolsky is excellent, but I don't know, for consistently throughout the years, like Vince is just constantly there. I mean, like 87, he's getting mentioned. 10 years later, he's got a good run there. I think you would say there's a few bits here that you could maybe give him as well. You know, I thought 2014, for example, was excellent with Daniel Bryan's story, and like WrestleMania 30. So, you know, I would imagine that he would be quite close here, but you know what the Observer's like with loving the Tokyo Dome and loving New Japan. So there's a few names here in the running. For consistency, I think I would say Vince. Looking at this list, I feel like Gato deserves a shout for what he's done with New Japan. This is a joke, to be honest. Even Dave Meltzer said, I think last year, he even said this isn't right. It was voted for by the people, and he said, if I was to decide this, I would have given it to Triple H. But I think that there is a very pro AEW fan base amongst the Wrestling Observer fans, and so they've gone with Tony Khan quite a bit, and may even go with him again now. You know, even though it's just not that great at the moment, it'll be very interesting to know if he does get it again. Or do they recognize Triple H? Do they recognize Triple H? And do we now start to see a bit of a run of dominance for Triple H? So that was Booker, right? Best Booker. It's interesting that they've got promoter here as well. Tony Khan dominant at the moment. Dana White getting some shouts is interesting, but not the world we're interested in. Vince McMahon, of course, getting some shouts. Choshu, New Japan before Gedo, well before Gedo. Baba for All Japan in that kind of early 90s period. But Vince being recognized in 88. I mean, 88 was the year of WrestleMania 3. So, you know, I think that's fair. So, yeah, very, very difficult. I think I feel like the correct answer or the right answer would be Vince. I wanted to give a bit more context than that because I don't want to sit here and just say Vince because that seems a bit boring. I think the truth is that no one has really dominated periods. I agree that Vince has had periods throughout his run. I agree that New Japan has had periods. I love that Gabe Sapolsky one. That's the one that really stood out to me. I think I would give Tony Khan the award for like 2001. But and Paul Triple H killing it at the moment. I think he's done great work. I think Triple H has done a great job, and I think he'll continue to do a great job. And I think you have to recognize the work he did in NXT. I mean, for a long period of time, I think Triple H was the best booker in NXT with Black and Gold. I think that was killing it. So, love that question. It's a great question. I hope that gave enough answer. James said, the fact is Scott D'Amore is not there and Tony is a joke. My dad told me that Stephanie doesn't like her dad. That's why she left WWE. Is that true? We don't know, to be honest. I mean, I think there are big issues there because I think that one thing that Vince has not denied is that there was a relationship with that woman. So there was a relationship there. Apparently the wedding, the marriage, that's the right word, to Linda is something that is in the past. You know, they are still technically together on paper, but I believe that that's more for like tax reasons and for the company and all that stuff. I don't think they've actually been together for a little while now. And so I think that Vince is kind of, you know, seeing other people, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's his life to choose to do that, right? But and I don't know if Linda's seeing other people, right? She is. But yeah, Vince can do that. So they haven't denied that Vince was in a relationship with this woman. What the denial is that the things that are being said during that relationship are not true, right? So I think that Steph is struggling. That feels to me to be the truth. I think that she, as you would, you know, you love your mom, you love your dad, you want them to get along, you want to be happy families, and this has not been the case, right? And I think that that has put a strain on things. I don't know if Vince has always been faithful. There's certainly been reports he has not. Linda found out about this relationship with this woman, and word is that that's why it ended. So it would suggest that he, even though he's not close or as close with Linda anymore, it would suggest that he got into a relationship that's, you know, maybe was not advisable, right? Even if he's not in an active marriage, perhaps it wasn't advisable for him to get into a different relationship, right? So, yeah, I don't know what the truth is, but what I could believe is that Steph is struggling with Vince, because I think that there's a lot of smoke. We don't know what the truth is. Obviously, if she's privy to information we've not been privy to, or if she knows a bit more than what we know as facts, you know, if there's been some heart-to-heart conversations or something, then yeah, I mean, I could believe that she's got an issue there. I could believe there's problems. But again, you know, that is a father and a daughter relationship, and there's been nothing concrete that I've ever seen that has suggested like that there's big problems and why there's big problems. Yeah, there's lots of noise, lots of theory, lots of speculation, lots of hearsay, but I could not right now pull you up a report and go, yeah, it's because of this. There you go. It was all on PW Insider. They're saying that it's facts and that multiple sources have confirmed it. It's blah, 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 blah. I don't have access to a report like that. If anyone does or knows of one, tag me in it. I'd be interested in seeing it. But yeah, I could believe that there's some issues there, and that would be the reason why. You said you was going 11 minutes ago. Yes, but you know me. I like to talk. No, I am going to go now. Bishop said, what are your thoughts on Logan? I think Logan's a good athlete. I think that he is someone that I don't quite class in that same bracket as the other celebrities. He's trained hard in boxing. He's had actual boxing fights. He's fought Floyd Mayweather. He's clearly athletic. He's got a high school wrestling background. And he applies himself whenever he does have a match. So it's very hard to look at Logan and go, oh, he sucks in the ring, he can't cut promos. Because he can. He can do both of those things. He can go in the ring and he can cut promos. The frustration for me is that he is someone that just appears for the big shows. Yeah, comes in once in a blue moon and appears at the big shows. And for me, I'm looking at the Finn Balors, the Sami Zayns, the Kevin Owens, who are better in ring than him, right? Better in ring. Because if you was to throw Logan Paul in the ring on Monday and go on then, I would be very interested to see what he comes up with, because his matches are rehearsed within an inch of their lives, right? So it's a bit like a dance, really. They're performing a performance and going through sequences which they've rehearsed, and he does them well. And I'm sure there's a few bits in there that they kind of try and call on the fly a little bit, right? And I hope there is, because they need to get him used to doing that, calling things on the fly and being involved in a bit more spontaneous moments, right? Because that's what Sammy can do. That's what Kevin can do. You could take Sammy and you could take Theory and you could chuck him in a ring on Monday and you would get a result. With Logan, you take him, put him Sammy in there, chuck him in a ring, Sammy's going to have to do the heavy lifting. Logan can do spots and splashes and crossbodies, and he can sell and he can do some good stuff, but he is not trained to the point where you can throw him in there and he's going to give you a 5-star match, right? So to me, he's someone that's got potential. He's someone that I've got respect for in regards to how much he has achieved. But the big criticism is, please apply yourself more. Please do more, because you can do this and you can be even better. And I suppose more than that, you are taking a position away from someone that is doing that thing that's more. I've got a lot of respect for people that work and grind and battle and fight, you know? I feel like that's reflected in the channel with like 9-hour streams. And then as soon as that finishes, we do a 30-minute unseen video. And then I literally go to bed, get up, I do a video about the Brock Lesnar news. Now I'm here doing a God knows how long stream, talking and answering questions and, you know, having a great time. But I feel like that's my mentality. You work, you fight, you grind, you know, you put the shift in. And I don't see that in Logan. Logan just rocks up like a few times a year. So what I'm looking for is someone that's going to, you know, do what I'm seeing Kevin Owens do what I'm seeing Grayson Waller and Austin Theory do. So my feelings for him are like, he can do it. He can wrestle. He can promo. He can make improvements in all of those areas. And I'd like to see him be a little more committed. Right, thanks a lot for watching, guys. I'm not going to hold you hostage anymore, right? Appreciate the support as always. That's why it's always hard for me to drag myself away. I still haven't had dinner, so I'm going to go and do that. And then I am going to work on a video, actually. My plan was to work on a video for, like, what's next. Like, after the Rumble, what's next? And it was funny that James dropped me an email going, this is what I think WrestleMania looks like. And I was like, that's exactly the kind of thing I was going to do. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to take James's tweet to use it and show it, right? Because I actually agree with the vast majority of it. And there's nothing there that I don't disagree with. I do just wonder if it will go that way for a couple of the matches. Like, it could, or will they do something else instead? So I think it's a really interesting conversation piece. But following like the Rumble, you know, what's next for Naomi, what's next for Jade Cargill, like what are we building towards for WrestleMania? That would seem like the logical video to make. So I'm going to go off and work on that. If you want to share your thoughts as to what you think WrestleMania looks like, what could be next for people, you can find the tweet on Wrestling Daze YT, and if you leave the comment in there, I will, during the video, show James's tweet, and I will obviously show the connected comments. So let me just quickly find that so that you know exactly where you're going. It is a little bit further down. Oh, it is quite far down now. We do a lot of talking, don't we, on here and over on X. We just do talking everywhere. No wonder my voice was giving up during that unseen video. Right, here we go. We've got, here's the, my X thing, right? So, Wrestling Daze YT. So that was the unseen video, right? I tagged it at the top so people, look at that. It's amazing, isn't it? Christina Aguilera, exactly the same as Liv. Like, she based it on that. Amazing. And then Jordynne Grace saying, thank you, WWE. This won't be the last you see of TNA, which is, again, very interesting. So we dug into these conversations, and look at all this as well. And I'm going to show off. Look at this. This is everything that was in the video. Look at this. Just keeps going. These are all the talking points. I had to write all this out. So it wasn't just recording the video. It was all of that as well. Each of these points are discussed in that half-an-hour video. It's flipping stacked. Right, so that was that anyway. This is this stream, right? 11 likes. 12 now. Right, if we go down. So I've been responding to people. Yeah, that was interesting. There was some tooth in the ring. And Eric said Cody lost it. I haven't seen that. And he was talking and acting fine. He didn't mention it. So did someone, I don't know if it was Cody, but did someone lose a tooth at some point in the Rumble? I haven't seen that reported. I have to keep an eye out for that. The Roman thing, we looked at that. Here we go. So we've had 4 responses. I've liked it. Boom. So James's WrestleMania card here from 5 hours ago. I said I've got about 90% the same. It's actually going to be in tomorrow's video. I'll include it. If anyone else has got WrestleMania 40 match predictions, leave them below. They may also be included. So if you do want to add anything to this, you can add it to this. I actually think that's quite a fun way forward as well. Like, we will do more videos And so using X as a platform for you to be able to share your thoughts, and then we can bring that into the video. That's a fun it's a fun way forward, I think. That could be quite useful. So we're definitely, I'm sure you've noticed, we're using X more, Twitter more, which is, it was never planned, but it's kind of another offshoot of the unseen videos. You know, it's kind of another, we're going down paths that we just wasn't really thinking of going down or have ever thought of going down. But it seems to be something that people are really engaged with. So, and a great way to kind of further interact with you guys, not only in the chat, but, you know, we've got this tool that we can use. So let's use it. Right, we're done. Thanks a lot for joining us. Appreciate the support as always. Hope you enjoyed this Royal Rumble weekend. We will be back tomorrow for Monday Night Raw. Of course, we're going to start 2 hours before the show because I love talking. So we'll start 2 hours before. I'm sure there'll be some news that drops tomorrow. Normally it can be a bit quiet on a Sunday, but normally on a Monday, that's when people, you know, the journalists start like trying to dig for stuff and try and find out what's next. And, you know, there could be some announcements about Elimination Chamber, blah, 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 blah. So we will definitely have some talking points tomorrow. But I hope you enjoyed this nearly 3 hour stream. Come on. I feel like what I should do is I should have a tweet saved that says, I talk way too much, right? Because I put that out last week, following last week's Sunday stream. So I should just save that. And then after every Sunday stream, just hit send. And then I don't have to keep typing it every week, do I? And that would be good. That'll save me a bit of time. I'm looking to save time. That'll save me time having to retweet it out every single week, retype it. So thanks a lot for watching. Appreciate it.